Good morning.
No, it's an angle, so it should be okay.
Welcome to the Tuesday, October 15th, 2019 Board of County Commissioners agenda setting work session. And apparently there's only one camera working, the one over behind us, so.
And the audio, it is working. The audio is working.
The audio is working? Okay, and one camera is on. And that's my best side anyway, is the back. I don't know if you folks, how that is for you. We're going to start with a new format, and that is with the agenda. We are starting with the homeless strategy, and we have Keely Marino. Oh, yay, here you are. I applaud you.
Oh, thank you.
To come in and give us an update before we jump into all the agendas. Go ahead.
Yeah, you see
oh, wait, I didn't introduce ourselves.
Yeah.
John Hutchings.
Hi, man, sir. Gary Edwards.
Robin Corbett, Commissioner Edwards.
Ramiro Chavez, County Manager.
Thomasina Cooper, Commissioner Counselor's Office.
Melanie Beaumar, Clerk of the Board.
David Porter, Public Information.
I didn't hear you, Neil.
Neil Shea, Commissioner's Office.
Keely Marino, Thurston County Public Health and Social Services.
Thank you. Ramiro, please.
So I believe the new format of the agenda, the board wanted to have a more frequent update on the homeless strategies that we have in terms of the Regional Housing Council and also the Hazardous Weather Task Force that's coming up. So there is a lot of information, so I will have on your agenda on every Tuesday just to make sure that you are properly informed as we move along some of the strategies. And hopefully we can have a 10-minute, a brief to you. If you have any questions, certainly we can follow up for next week to answer those questions that you may have.
And we made this change last week to have a weekly, and either you, Keely, or a designee. But we also respect your time and how inundated you are with these meetings and all the things that you're facilitating towards this major issue. So that's why we're bringing you on first right up the top. So you're able to stick around all morning long, just get to your 10 or 15 minutes.
Great.
So now it's your time.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm glad to be here. So I just have a few updates. There's a lot that goes on in a week, especially around this topic of homelessness. First of all, just starting off with the 5-year plan, the 5-year homeless crisis response plan. I believe you've received copies of that plan in its final draft form, and I will be presenting to you all, and hopefully we will be adopting on the 29th of October. But so far, I've been able to present to Tumwater for a work session last Tuesday. It was a nice, lengthy session. It was a good hour and a half that we spent a lot of time diving deep into this issue. And then following that, the following night, I presented on Homelessness 101 and the Homeless Crisis Response System in Thurston County to Jblm. And that meeting was not a homeless task force and not a city council meeting, but rather a forum that I was invited to come and speak at. However, the public there was very curious about a high-level look at what the plan is, so they were very eager to hear about what the 5-year plan held and maintained. Today, following this meeting, I'll be going to Lacey City Hall for their land use committee to present on the plan, and then tonight to the city of Olympia. So I'm booking right along with presenting the 5-year plan. I've received good feedback. Some of the high-level feedback I've gotten is some folks wanting to really make sure that affordable housing is called out in the plan a little bit more, and creating a work with the work plan, which is a good 40 pages of the plan, kind of mapping it out and creating an actual prioritized step-by-step plan, which I absolutely intend to do because it's a lot in the strategies. And then in terms of hazardous weather, we're actually meeting next week. We had to delay our meeting due to one of the key shelter providers not being in town and will not be returning until the 21st. So the only reason why there's any kind of delay is just to make sure that we get everyone at the table. As you can imagine, and as you know, getting 10, 15, sometimes 20 stakeholders together at one time to discuss it is a tricky matter. So we'll be meeting next week. We'll have 2 meetings, one a much more focused meeting, and then a general hazardous weather task force, which will be held on Friday the 25th from 3 to 4:30. And we'll be diving deep into the strategies of any kind of gaps that we see in our system. We'll be launching this year's night-by-night shelter census form that all the shelter providers will be filling out. We'll be talking about sheltering in place activities and making any kind of proposed changes or developing a proposal for that. And then moving on from there, as you know, the cold weather season officially starts on November 1st. So just making sure all of our shelter providers are up and ready to go. And that's generally what we've been doing. For the Regional Housing Council, we did have the technical team and the communications team meet yesterday, very productive meetings, and looking forward to this Thursday's meeting at Lacey.
So November 1 is 2 weeks away is when the clock starts ticking for the hazardous weather.
Yes.
And, okay. But my question is going to be this then. Can you update us on what is available today?
Yes.
With a pending little mini storm coming in tomorrow. But if the temperatures were to drop at night below freezing, what do we do in the next 2 weeks?
Right.
What's available should it become really hazardous and inclement?
Absolutely. So we have, the 3 shelters are ready to go. That's Community Youth Services, Family Support Center, and Salvation Army for cold weather beds. So hopefully they've been doing their hiring and prepping their facility for those additional beds. Were there to be a code blue or a hazardous weather event, prior to it being declared, there must be a combination of hazardous conditions. So it's not merely cold weather necessarily, unless it's extraordinarily below freezing. But if it were high windstorm and 29 degrees, or a combination of factors that make it extraordinarily hazardous, we would, the Hazardous Weather Task Force core team would gather. We would discuss what kind of recommendation we would make to the Director of Public Health. We would make that recommendation, and then the Director of Public Health and the Health Officer at Public Health would then declare a hazardous weather event. In the days while we're in the time that we're waiting to get that declaration, we'll be prepping the shelters, doing any kind of purchasing for shelter-in-place activities, mobilizing volunteers, gathering volunteers to ensure that when that cold weather starts, then we'll be ready to go.
And what kind of capacity do we have?
We can increase our capacity for cold weather shelter down at the plan is as now. The Salvation Army, the section of the Salvation Army building downtown that is not being used currently can be expanded into cold weather. And I believe that Captain Mark Stern said there could be an additional 30 to 40 beds.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Commissioner? Do you have questions, Steve?
No. Thank you for being here. This is exactly the kind of information that, I need to be just the right level. If, I don't, week to week, all these, like you say, so many things happen, and I think all of us need to be walking around with those updates in our head. Just one quick question, and I know Ramiro said 10 minutes. This is, I think in the summer-ish, we changed the coordinated entry structure a little bit, or at least Family Support Services Center did.
Yeah.
And how's that going? I mean, I haven't heard anything about it.
Oh, yeah.
Except for over the weekend, and heard a little bit about it, which prompted my question. From your perspective, how's coordinated entry going after this change that we did?
I think it's going excellently. At the Housing Action Housing Action Team, so many task force and teams, we had Community Action Council bring forth some of their data that they, from the point that they started, so the last 2 months of their work. And they have, I believe they've done over 75 interviews. Their housing, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'm happy to get them to you next week. But they're doing very well. The switch over also, the person who does the vet coordinated entry over at the Vet Hub has been a significant increase in getting veterans into housing since the switch over. Having a person down at the community care center for longer periods of time, longer stretches of time, she's coming with a housing case manager. And so they're able to kind of tag team and get people go through the assessment and perhaps enrolled that moment with rapid rehousing. They're also worked out coordinated entry to help house folks in Plum Street Village, Tiny Home Village, which was not occurring before. And so they've really made some strides. They are going to have an office at the mitigation site downtown. so they can do coordinated entry assessments in the mitigation site. So they're just,
CAC you're talking about?
yes, Community Action Council. So it's very exciting. Outreach has increased with family support centers, outreach coordinator for coordinated entry, as well as Community Action Council's work. So we're very happy.
Okay, great.
Anything? I have one final question. What is it that we as a board and our staff can do to help support you in your efforts?
Oh, boy. In 30 seconds or
What,
less?
15 seconds, how's that?
Let me think about that, and I'll bring it back to you next week. How
Yes,
about that?
Thank you, yes, that's
Yeah.
fine, thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Keely.
Good answer.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Now we're going to move into the review of the agenda for this afternoon, October 15, 2019. We will call the meeting to order at 2 o'clock. And the Pledge of Allegiance led by Vice Chair Gary Edwards. And then an approval of the agenda and the board meeting minutes from last week. And then we have the opportunity for the public to address the board. We aware of anything?
Yes, you may
Sure,
probably
yeah.
start getting some public testimony related to the comp plan amendment. You have a public hearing this afternoon at 5:30, but perhaps the public may be coming and address the board at 2 in the afternoon. Also, I believe Mr. Pettit may be coming and provide some perspective. He submitted a letter yesterday related to the courthouse and the involvement of the City of Olympia and the overall project. Anyway, so Mr. Pettit may be coming this afternoon as well. Also, he's present this morning. So,
Anything else?
now that I
You aware of anything that might come up? All right. Then the county manager update.
I really don't have any specific updates since I was not present last week. So.
Okay. That takes us to agenda item number 3, the consent items A through D, alpha through delta. First one is Human Resources, approval of the Board of Equalization annual request to convene for the 2019 year.
Yes, under RCW 84, I believe you reviewed some of those items last week, but let me walk you through each one of those. Under RCW 84-48010, the Board of Equalization, with the approval of the Board of County Commissioners, may convene at any time, so outside of the regularly scheduled meetings, to hear petitions. When those petitions exceed 25% or 10% of the number of appeals of the previous year. So far in 2019, we have received 535 appeals, and that is just about 10% of the same period of in 2018, and that is the request. The board has exercised this action in the past, and it really gives the Board of Equalization a little more latitude, meeting more often to address all the backlog related to the appeals when they receive those.
Well, I'll turn to my seatmates first. Questions? Any questions?
Well, I guess it's more of a comment than a question. I just wonder if it isn't possible that sometime in the future, I know this is just a formality to do this, but I've always disagreed with the ability of the assessor to override the Board of Equalization's findings the following year. And so a citizen that has an ongoing complaint has to continue appealing every year. All it does is create a bunch of work for all parties concerned, and in the end, the citizen ends up burning up a lot of time, burns up a lot of our staff time, and the assessor just bumps it right back to whatever he said the original amount was, even though the Board of Equalization has reduced it. And I'd like to look into the possibility if we couldn't create an ordinance that maybe would give us the authority to say, well, when the Board of Equalization has reached a figure reducing the tax load to the citizen, that it stay in place for 2 years or 3 years or something besides what we're doing now, because we have a perpetual hole in the ground that just eats up resources, and the citizens get very little benefit from it. So I'd like to have a discussion on the possibilities. Maybe there's a state law that prevents us from doing so, but I'd sure like to know if there isn't some way that we could assist the citizens so they don't have to be in perpetual appeal against the assessor's office.
First reaction to that comment, Commissioners, and I believe the same idea came a couple of years ago. But I will look into, with the prosecuting attorney, what options do we have. But as I recall, that is a little bit difficult because that's an independent elected official in which the mission is for the assessor to establish valuations in all the properties in the county and creates a separation between the Board of County Commissioners and his valuation. And whether you can influence, the evaluations on whatever means and methods, that may be a high task to achieve, but I will certainly look into it.
Yeah, just a question. Thank you.
I don't know if you have this information.
He has it.
Go,
I didn't know.
oh, go ahead.
I know the assessor will, but we have about 500 or so appeals. Is that trending up, down, or right on par with the last number of years?
Well, this is the action because it's trending higher.
But do you know how much it's trending higher, how much higher?
Well, at
Just the
least
10%?
at least it's 10% from the same time in 2018.
Okay, and I didn't know over the last 5 years if it's been trending consistently higher.
As far as I know, you have taken this action for the last 3 years, the board.
Okay.
So the trend is high.
All right, thank you. Go ahead.
I'd just be curious, if we were in thinking about Commissioner Edwards' question, which isn't something I'd ever thought about, but it would be curious to me how many times the Board of Equalization revises the assessor, and then what percentage of those the assessor then the next year just resets it where he did before, because I'm sure that's not 100%. And so I don't have a sense of the scale of this problem, if it is a problem, but maybe Gary knows.
I think if it's not 100%, it's 99%.
I cannot
Okay.
answer that.
No, I can.
You just did.
Okay, anything else on that one? All right. Are we going to keep that there on consent items, though?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
No, this is a formality
Okay,
just to
thank
meet
you.
the requirements of the law.
Just wanna be sure.
I've got no problem with continuing on, but I'd like to have it looked into.
3B is Human Resources, the benefit contributions for county employees for 2020.
Commissioners, you have received a couple of briefings from Human Resources, and this particular item is for you to approve a resolution for establishing the 2020 benefit packages for county employees and dependents, including the contributions associated with all the different suite of options that the employees have. Some of the decisions that you made previously, providing direction to Human Resources, have already included on the 2020 budget. And the open enrollment period for employees to continue with the same benefits or perhaps change, it starts on November 1st and ends on November 27, 2019. And that is just about the same time in which happens every year.
Okay, any questions?
This is the piece related to the formula that we're using, right?
That is exactly the
And-
formula.
And what I saw on some documents that I recently got my hands on was that it doesn't go into effect until, we're actually going to, just so people are clear, it kicks in July.
So it's two things.
This change that we're making
Yeah, it's two things.
is what I saw on the forms.
Yeah, and I think it's two things but related. This is just establishing the benefits to the employees. So from November 1st to November 27, any employee can exercise their option whether they want to change and maintain or also change their family structure. And that takes effect January 1st, 2020. The element that you described, in July 2020, is related to the percentage, the formulation. And you're right. So that takes effect in July 2020. So that's part of the overall concept. Did I answer your question?
Well, which item is this?
This is
Of
just
those two elements that you just described?
This is just to give the employees the option to change their benefits.
Okay. Yeah, I know we've gone through it.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to, because there's been
But the two items that you were recalling are included in the budget.
full elements of this.
Yes, and
Is that it? 3C, emergency services, dispensing of EMS equipment.
So let me take you back. Early in the year, you exercise your vote to replace the tablets they are using on all the emergency vehicles. And as a result, those tablets have been replaced, and now this request is for you to authorize the Director of Emergency Services to surplus those old tablets. And as opposed to just going through the process of surplusing, it's just transferring to another agency that perhaps may be of use of those tablets. In this particular case, the tablets can probably be used by Fire District number 17. And that is the purpose of this action the director is requesting. Also, in this same action, the director is requesting to authorize for him to surplus any other medical equipment to other emergency medical services. So we don't have to come back to you every time that we have to surplus, or the director has to surplus any medical related equipment. I believe Medic One has seen him in this particular action, and they have provided the support and recommendation for you to take an action in considering this.
All right. Questions?
Maybe you could explain the Medic One board, just so the public knows.
Yeah, the Medic One board is the regional board, and I believe a commissioner sits there. This year is you, Commissioner Edwards, along with elected officials, representatives from the cities and different cities, as well as from representatives from all the first responders, law enforcement, and fire.
Yep.
Okay.
Which provide the governance as to how the Medic One should be implemented.
3D is the auditor's voucher list, and we've received that, and I've gone through it. Any questions or comments on the vouchers?
No.
Okay, it takes us to department items. Agenda item number 4, CPED, Community Planning and Economic Development, the History Book Grant Program.
Yeah, the historic book that is called The Water, Woods, and Prairies of Thurston County was printed in the spring of 2019, this year. And unfortunately, they have many copies printed, have been sitting in storage, and it became a little difficult as to how we can dispose of those, and the citizens can benefit from the information included on those books. We have just about 240 softbound and 225 hardbound books. So this approach, as to the staff is proposing for you to consider, is to issue a grant. A grant, they will be a nonprofit organization, which is a 501c3. They can probably take those books and just dispose of those books for profit or not. There was a little bit of a conversation with whether the Historic Commission can do that. It became a little bit of an interesting process, since the Historic Commission was the one who used county money to print those books. We checked with the prosecuting attorney that perhaps was not a clear way to do it, because it could probably create a conflict of interest, especially if those books are sold for profit. So this is a good alternative. We have checked with the prosecuting attorney as to how we can give this to a nonprofit to come in. We award the books to the nonprofit, and the nonprofit will dispose of those books whether they can sell for profit or not. There will be a brief criteria as to how we're going to be selecting the nonprofit, which will include a marketing and publicity plan. It will include distribution and secure storage of the materials, and educational program with specific measuring outcomes, as well as provide some budgetary information. In terms of the timeline, if the board approves today, the grant application will open October this week, in October. The grant will close on November 4th. November 13th, the Historic Commission will review the applications, and by December 3rd, the board will act in recommending this grant to a nonprofit.
On December
3rd. That is the tentative schedule.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
Could you explain the funding that some dedicated funding went into this.
Yeah,
Where that
it's-
fund comes from for the public, so they know we're not doing this instead of hiring deputy sheriffs or prosecutors.
Yeah, is an allocation to, I can't remember the funding source. Can you help us with that, Jeremy?
Good morning, Commissioners. Jeremy Davis, Thurston County CPED. So the funding source for the Historic Commission is actually a recording fee that's collected by the Thurston County Auditor under RCW 3622-170, which is specific to supporting Historic Commission efforts on education, historic preservation, preparing exhibits for museums and other such sundry related items.
Thank you. That's all. I just wanted the public to be aware of it.
So Joshua Cummings, Director of Community Planning and Economic Development. I just add one thing. Last week when we brought this to your attention and did the whole kind of review on this, the Assistant County Manager raised a concern that we needed to address with the Auditor's Office. We've since addressed that concern and have the green light from the County Auditor as well.
What was the concern?
Where was the concern?
It was about the disposition of the books and how the gifting of public funds and then how we monitor the information as it comes back in the years going forward. So whoever takes responsibility of the book needs to report back on the educational outcomes. And there was a concern of how that monitoring would take place, and we have a path forward.
So will that be addressed on the application requirements, which includes presenting measurable outcomes? As
Yes.
to how, okay.
Correct.
And for clarification, the Thurston County Historic Commission will not be an applicant for this grant.
Correct.
No.
Okay. Do you have any questions?
Just a comment that I had a chance to meet with members of the Historic Commission, and they're very appreciative of the finding a path forward. So thank you guys for being creative and figuring out how to do this.
Well,
Yeah.
That was my question or comment too. Have they been notified of the process and the dates?
Thank you for that. So the tentative timeline that the county manager provided is, we wanted to move as quickly as possible. We will obviously bring that timeline forward again to the Historic Commission, and if they'd like to move it forward into the new year, that'll be on them, depending upon their schedules and their ability to be participants. Did you have anything to add?
Yeah. And actually, at this last week's Historic Commission meeting, there was a discussion on the grant timelines at their meeting where Sandy was there and brought up the discussion that occurred at the board the day before, the Tuesday before. So they have heard of this, they've heard of the timeline, and have some discussion on it already.
Great. And have you read the book at all or seen it?
Yes.
Okay, so my question is this. The Thurston County Historic Commission, is Mr. Sheriff Commissioner Gary Edwards in it?
I don't know why.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just
I
because
missed
I've been
that
here
comment.
forever? Is that what you're
Yeah.
implying?
He's a walking history book.
Oh, I see, I see what you meant. I'm a little slow this morning. I need more coffee.
What's that?
I need more coffee. A little slow this morning.
Agenda item number 5, Public Works, setting a public hearing for amendments to 15.0.01, chapter of the Storm and Surface Water Utility Rates.
Yeah, for your consideration, Commissioners, for you to set a public hearing for November 5th, 2019, 3 in the afternoon in this room, for you to receive public testimony for proposed changes to Thurston County Code, Chapter 15.06, that is related to the storm and the surface water utility rates. The board received a couple of briefings related to these particular changes. One of the main objective is there is a little bit of interpretation that perhaps in one of the part of the code that perhaps this utility, the rate ends at the end of 2018. That is really the main focus of that, just to clarify that aspect of the rates. And also staff took the opportunity to change a little bit of some of the language related to this chapter again. The board had some good conversation related to this proposal, and the direction of the board was to go ahead and ask staff to submit an AIS for you to set a public hearing. And then after that, you will receive public testimony, and then you will determine how you'd like to proceed.
Okay.
This came up last week, and Mamira wasn't here, so I'm trying to remember if we had.
Take him back.
Yeah. I can't, unfortunately. I wasn't here.
Then you can blame me.
Was the,
Yeah.
there was this was the briefing that we had a couple of times, and there was a couple, was there any, my question is, was there any loose end that we didn't resolve?
No. So let me walk you through briefly some of the proposed changes, if I may.
Yeah.
Maybe that will trigger your. On 1506 to certain the definitions, it was it clarified the commercial industrial definition, which is becomes a word the primary use. So it eliminated a little bit of it clarified the definition itself.
Mm-hmm.
The next on the director, it changed to the director of public works as opposed to the director of waters and waste management. The next item is on the same chapter. It clarifies the definition of vacant property. And that is related to with the total building square footage of 125 square feet or less. So it's a little more prescriptive in terms of what is considered to be a vacant property, which when it's a vacant property, the rates don't apply. You also included for the you may recall the private roads.
Yeah.
And sometimes there is some private roads that perhaps may not be assessed on that, although they have in previous surfaces. So the intent of this also code is to make sure the underlying property owners may be assessed on that road as well, which those are the users of that private road as well. That's another change. The other change is to clarify the 2019 end date, and also include a recommendation to have the lake management districts to provide a yearly report as to how their actions and their strategies meets the intent of increasing water quality. That's the gist of the proposed changes.
I'm remembering now that the last piece of this discussion, we kind of hit a wall, but I think we voted at least 2-1. We said let's just put on for public hearing and see what public say.
And you will probably and I believe that the intent was to the Lake Management District representatives will come and provide their perspective on the proposed changes. Staff had reached out to both Lake Management District, Lone Lake and Lawrence Lake, and I believe they're aware of the proposed changes. I'm sure they're going to be coming and provide their testimony before you, Nick.
And repeat the last piece of the change related to the management district.
Yeah. So and that is.
Just a summary.
So the state submits a report to the department on or before July 1st on the preceding year, documenting the projects and programs which were undertaken in the preceding 12 months. On the previous item says is actively engaged in projects and programs which have water quality improvements as a primary goal. So that is the water quality improvements and the reporting requirements the staff is suggesting for you.
That's what I was remembering.
Yep.
Yeah, we kind of went round and round there and didn't come to a complete decision, but we wanted to go ahead and advance the process.
Right.
Thank you. Gary, anything?
Maybe three small things. The 125 square foot roof proposal. Did we consider, we changed the code recently, and I think you can do a 400 square foot building now without a permit
yes,
or something?
but it's
Does that
unrelated.
have an impact on this?
No, it's unrelated. This is to assess the stormwater fees related to in previous surfaces. What you recall is an exception the board passed on 400 square feet or less related to permits. So there's unrelated
And
items.
it'll not have any effect on anything?
No, sir.
And on the lakes management side of this, is it going to create additional work for the lake management districts that they don't currently now have to perform?
You've heard from staff that perhaps they may not be an impact because the staff is the one who provides assistance to both lake management districts in terms of the projects and programs. And as a result, the staff will most likely develop this report. It's just a document just to make sure that whatever, so let me let me backtrack. Okay, why this item is proposed by staff. The lake management districts, they do have a break on the stormwater fees. So they don't pay a full fee, so as a reduced rate. So the intent of this change is to make sure the lake management districts provide a report as to how they contribute to the water quality, which is the main goal of the stormwater utility. So it's really is a matter of making sure that we cross all the T's and dot all the I's in order to make justice to the stormwater utility, since both lake management districts receive a reduced rate on their assessment. That is really the gist of that proposed comment,
So,
our proposal.
so if anything, what the lake management districts might get charged more as our staff
No.
is required to
No,
do additional work?
I don't believe so.
No. Okay, and then, what was there, about a dozen private roads that were affected with this?
I think just about that. It wasn't that significant.
But did we ever figure out how many property owners there were? Because each one of those private roads, it's gonna be
Have that-
about,
we have that information.
I don't know, 10 to 14 private property owners on each one of those roads
yeah.
that are gonna have their taxes
We-
increased,
Yeah,
right?
without putting Tim on the spot, I see that he doesn't have that information. How about if we take those conversations, that question, and we'll bring that back to you at the time of the public hearing, just to make sure everything is out in the open. Will that work?
Okay, that'll work.
Oh, you skated. I was waiting for you to get up. Thank you, Romero. That's it? Okay, you all right? All right. That takes us to agenda item number 6, the approving rates and charges for the Conservation District.
Commissioners, this item was not included on last week's agenda when you reviewed today's agenda, but as you may recall, the commitment, at least from my point of view, is to bring this item to your formal vote. And this is related to the Thurston Conservation District rates and charges. You held a public hearing. You received significant public testimony related to this particular proposal. And the board had a follow-up discussion, and I believe the board provided direction on 3-0. They would like to implement the rates and charges. And also, the next conversation the board had was for how long, meaning the duration of the rates and charges. It was a good discussion. There was a couple of proposals, and the majority of the board provide direction to bring this resolution before you. That includes a 5-year implementation of the rates and charges that will be from 2020 to 2024. And this is, I perceive to be the last step in the process for the Thurston Conservation District rates and charges.
And the reason that's not in consent is because we want to split out the vote.
This usually does not go on consent.
It does not.
Because it's significant enough, the public needs to understand what the gist of
Good,
this
okay,
is.
okay. Any questions on that? Any questions on that or the wording? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, not on the wording, but I guess I'm gonna reiterate my concerns. I'm in favor of granting the authority, although half of the conservation districts in the state of Washington do not utilize this rates and charges. I'd just like to point that out. And my concern is that should this go for a 5-year period, we're easily talking about $10 million in tax money that could be affected. There's currently still ongoing litigation. I don't know where that's at, involving the Conservation District. And although the Conservation District is doing very good work, as far as I know right now, and they've really come a long ways, we've got a 20-year history in which that has not been the case. And for anybody in question of that, they could look at our paper of record, the Olympian, at the history of the articles written there over those years. And I just like to think that from my position as a county commissioner, when I am a steward of the tax dollars I like to treat it as if it's my own money. And in this particular case, if we were to go for the 5-year period, that is going to be no oversight for that total 5-year period, because once we grant the authority to collect this tax, we have no ability to rescind that, no matter what happens. That's, and then also recognizing the potential for, I guess, consistency for other organizations that are going to be granting money where the initial money is seed money that is collected here in the county. I'm concerned that although things are going good now, that doesn't mean things are going to be going good 3 years from now or next week. I think it will. I think there's a good chance, but if I was putting my money out of my wallet, I would want some oversight over this money, and this way we have no oversight, and I believe it's my responsibility to do the best I can for the taxpayers of Thurston County, because they're the ones that are going to be paying this bill. And I just think that we need some adequate oversight. There's some other issues that are unrelated, having to do with the State Conservation District Board and the state legislature looking at adjusting the process in which these boards are managed and the election process over them, but those are issues yet to be corrected, and because of that, I feel that it's this board's obligation to do the best we can to make sure that the taxpayers get the best bang for the buck. So that's where I'm at.
No, we've already gone through this.
We've gone through this. And even though Thurston County does not have oversight authority, the state of Washington does. Is that correct?
No?
Well, that is correct, because the Board of County Commissioners does not have administrative oversight of the Thurston Conservation District. The administrative oversight of the Thurston Conservation District is done by the Thurston Conservation District Board of Supervisors, and that creates a well-defined line.
I'd like to clarify that this board, once the authority is granted for that 5-year period, we have no more oversight on it. The state board, they can intervene in different ways, and again, I would refer you to any articles in the past on how that's been handled. And I would just say that even though you could call that oversight, there's no way to stop the tax collection and what happens to the local tax dollars. The oversight they do have is the ability either to remove players or not fund additional portions, but that doesn't affect any of the money collected for whatever period of time we authorize this money to be collected.
So that is correct, in terms of as soon as the legislative authority, you establish the resident charges for a certain period of time, within that period of time you cannot rescind that. So and that is correct.
Right, and we knew that going into it. Yeah.
Well, I'd follow up with, I feel this is a very minor inconvenience if we do this every couple of years now, or future boards deal with this. It isn't that much of a headache to make sure things are kind of going along smoothly, especially when you consider millions of dollars that are going to be expended here. So I think the few minutes that we dedicate to that oversight issues is well worth it.
Okay. Moving on then, we get to the Commissioner's Board assignment reports and the County Manager's his update of the following week. And then we adjourn. And then, oh yeah, we move right into a public hearing number 1 to amend Thurston County Code 2.02.
Yeah, Commissioners, you will be receiving public testimony this afternoon related at 3 in the afternoon related to proposed changes to Thurston County Code 2.02. and that is related to your official meetings, regular meetings, and special meetings. This proposed changes to the code aligns the state law requirements and includes that on the Thurston County Code. And I think that is a good action that it was brought by a citizen. We took that in consideration and staff brought this for your consideration. Certainly, that needs to be done just to be clear in Thurston County Code as to how the regular meetings and special meetings are managed while you conduct your business.
Okay. Questions or comments on that?
No.
And then it says 3:30 Board of Health, but I don't believe we have
No,
a Board of
it's,
Health today.
we took that out. That's a typo.
Thank you. And 5:30 p.m., public hearing on comprehensive plan periodic update.
Yeah, you will be 5:30. You will have a public testimony related to the Thurston County Comprehensive Plan periodic update. You receive a couple of briefings related to this particular item. This is a long time coming in terms of this periodic update in relation to meeting the requirements of the Department of Commerce. So far, we have received significant written testimony. The last count, I believe we received close to 70 written testimonies, and as well as a very thick package from FutureWise, outlining some specific comments for your consideration. As you can see, the only proposed action for you this afternoon is to close the public hearing. Considering the magnitude and the complexity, perhaps some of those comments, it requires for you to have a follow-up briefing. We have a scheduled one for tomorrow. It's only 30 minutes. My sense, perhaps it's not going to be enough, depending on the public testimony. And again, please don't feel that you're rushed. I think this is a very important legislative decision that you'll be facing, and staff needs to take the necessary steps in order for you to feel comfortable on whatever action you would like to take. So today is the public hearing. I'm expecting to receive significant public testimony related to this item. Tomorrow we have an initial conversation with the board related to the significance and the content of those comments received. And then we'll see where the board would like to go and require additional information or any type of specific meetings you would like to have in the near future.
Sounds good. I think after reading yesterday all of the written comment, which I did, even if nobody shows up today, there's going to be questions to be gone through just based on the written submissions. And I think on tomorrow, we need to just try to figure out a roadmap for how to approach this. It's very complicated. I mean, the budget has got a ton of decision points, but at least each decision point's clear, right? Okay, here's what the request is. We spend money or we don't. Comp plan, very difficult because it's wording and shades of nuance, and you could see how effective we were yesterday or the last few days ago trying to wordsmith. When three of us were trying to wordsmith a very simple resolution on I-976, that's not a productive way to go about it. So we have to come up with a process to address these issues, but yet be orderly because we don't have infinite amount of time. And so I'm hoping we can figure that out tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. And the complexity of the issue before you is a lot of wording, is policy that you would like to implement for the upcoming year. So it is important for you to feel comfortable some of the comments and the content of the proposal. So,
Commissioner? Anything?
Yes. Maybe just for clarification, you mentioned this was a requirement under Department of Commerce, but it's also a requirement under the Growth Management Act of Washington State. Is that right?
Thank you for the clarification. This is a GMA requirements, but what I meant with my comment is those proposals before you doesn't include all the comp plan amendments. It's just the required comp plan amendments they would need to submit to the Department of Commerce. But the overall comp plan amendment, you're absolutely right, is a requirement by GMA.
Okay.
And we reduced the topic to comp plan, but it's comprehensive, and it's exceedingly comprehensive.
And complicated.
And complicated. We received a big stack of documentation yesterday, and I got through a chunk of it last night, but certainly not all of it. So it will take time to read all these things and digest them, so we're prepared even after 30 minutes tomorrow, which is not significant amount of time. It'll take time to get through that. But we'll move to close the public hearing this evening. Any other questions on the public hearing? No? No? No. Okay. We'll move on to the BoCC draft agenda for next Tuesday, October 22nd, 2019. And we'll call the meeting to order at 2 o'clock. Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Menser, and then approval of the board agenda and the meeting minutes from today. Then move into presentations. The first one is public defense. We have an introduction of a new employee.
Yeah, Patrick O'Connor, the Director of Office of Public Defense, would like to bring you a staff to introduce in front of the board. That will be new employees, Jerry Simmons. He is a defense attorney number 1. Kayla Bruman and Susan Nieves. Both are legal assistants 1, and Christy Pitts is a legal assistant 2. And this is a good exercise. The offices and department come as soon as they have a new staff to come for you to greet new employees and welcome them into the Thurston County government.
And then we'll see him at the new employee orientation. All right. Then item number 1 and 2, the public addressing the board and the county manager update. Do you have anything just yet?
On that particular, you will review this item next on this agenda. You will have a public hearing, a couple public hearings on Tuesday, October 22nd, one of which at 5:30 is the Thurston, the courthouse project in Civic Center. You may receive public testimony related to that particular item on the 2 o'clock meeting.
Okay. And we'll get to that public hearing in a few minutes then. And no updates, I would imagine, at this point.
No, at this point, I will follow up if it need be.
Okay. Agenda item number 3, consent items A, B, and C. First one, essential services, reclassification of a position.
Reclassification, thank you. It's actually reclassifying position. We'll fix that. Thank you for the typo. This proposal before you is to reclassify the current position in central services that will be facilities from a facilities technician 1 to a facilities technician 2. This is just the beginning of a larger effort. The assistant county manager, Robin Campbell, is overseeing this part of the county business, and she has gone through an exercise as to how she can probably structure in a much better way to be more effective in responding to a facility-related issue. So this is the first step. You may be seeing a little more in detail. The gist of this proposal, if I may give you, Robin would like to form teams within the facilities staff just to be more effective in responding to facilities needs in the county. So this particular proposal before you has a budget impact. It goes from $5,006 a month to $5,520 a month. That will be a $514 increase, just about 10% increase. At this point, staff is not asking for any budget adjustment, as they will plan to absorb within the current budget allocation.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
No.
All right. Then B, 3B is the public health reclassifying a position.
This is also when, and I applaud the directors. They're going through this process as well as elected offices. When an individual moves on from a specific position, elected offices and departments look at how that vacant position can probably fit within the overall business. It really creates an opportunity as to how we can assess those. So this particular position is specifically to that. This proposal is to reclassify the social services program specialist number 3 to a program manager. And this is in the housing area of public health and social services? No? Okay.
Please, yeah, Shelley. come
And,
on up.
and this particular proposal, not every single classification results in a cost increase. In this particular case, the reclassification results in a decrease on the budget. So it will go from $7,766 a month to $7,600 a month. That will be a decrease of $138 a month, or just about 2% decrease. So, and Shelley can set me straight on my comments.
Good morning,
morning.
Commissioner. Shelley Slaughter, Director of Thurston County Public Health and Social Services. That you recently did take this action in our housing program, but this particular position is in our developmental disabilities program because unfortunately Jennifer Popchak Hakeem has accepted a new position with the state of Washington, which she starts tomorrow. We had our goodbye party yesterday. And so this position eliminates the social services 3 classification that we've had, reclasses it to a program manager, and Mark Moffitt, who has been our veterans community program manager, is going to serve as the interim while we make permanent decisions for that position.
Questions, comments?
I guess I wish I would have known about
Yeah.
Jennifer leaving.
I had no idea
Yeah.
Jennifer Popchak Hakeem was leaving.
It did develop very quickly about a week ago.
I still didn't know about it a week ago.
My apologies, sir.
So, and that will be, I would like to have a conversation with the board as to what type of information you would like to hear when staff is moving on across the county. So provide direction to me will be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mark Moffitt is a great choice, though, to step in as an interim.
That was kind of high level. Could you take me like one step further down in terms of what the previous job versus the new classification? I mean, what's different about that?
Sure, yes. So the Social Services Specialist 3 classification is a supervisory position. However, it is not an MTP management position. It's not an exempt position. This is a classification series that will be evaluated by HR in the upcoming, and I think the next series. And it is kind of a holdover from when the behavioral health organization, previously the RSN, was located within our department. So this position really just doesn't quite meet the needs of our organization any longer because it's not a management position and the duties require more extensive work than the social services classification really allowed for us. And also there is pay inequity a little bit between the social services 3 position and the management position. So for example, social services 3 would be supervising MTP managers, and this kind of creates a better structure where the manager can oversee social services specialists 2s and 1s and other positions. So cost savings and better meets our needs for management of these really important programs.
When is her last day?
It is tomorrow.
All right, thank you.
Oh, excuse me. It is today. She starts her new position tomorrow.
All right. Thank you. Any other
you.
questions?
No.
Okay. Thank you, Shelley. 3C is the financial services, the voucher list. We'll look at that when he comes in. Moving to department item number 4, emergency services, a resolution to purchase defibrillators.
Yeah, this particular proposal for you commissioners is to authorize the purchase of 50 public access defibrillators. They will be outfitted into the law enforcement, the Thurston County Sheriff vehicles. Excuse me. And Medic One board has determined that this is a good investment and provide public access since the Sheriff's Office is most likely the first responders and give them the tools to provide an initial aid was always helpful. This is not a replacement. This is a brand new equipment that will be outfitted to the sheriff vehicles. It has a cost of $88,806.25. And but also by going through the Washington State Office of Management Enterprise Services contract, we were able to save $10,588.44 on this purchase. Kurt Harden is the Director of Emergency Services is here if you have any questions related to this particular proposal.
Any questions? Ty, questions or comments?
I do.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kurt Harden, Director of Emergency Services.
Good morning.
Kurt, this is in conjunction with the sheriff, and he's saying even though his workload is such that he's going to be able to handle the implementation of this new program?
Correct. We've been working with the Sheriff's Office on an implementation process in the first quarter of 2020. This is going to be, and I'm not going to speak for the sheriff, but my understanding is it'll be wrapped up into their normal training process because they do CPR training and first aid training as part of their sheriff's deputies training plan. And so what we're planning on doing is an AED and compression-only CPR would be the only steps you would add into that, and so we're working with them on that training schedule.
And as we move forward with this, will this be part of the ER&R program?
What we're going to do is Medic One is going to, first of all, there's an 8-year warranty with the AEDs, and the second piece is though the only parts that have maintenance are the batteries and the pads, and those batteries and pads need to be replaced approximately every 4 years. We inspect them continuously, but the lifespan of those, if they're not used, is every 4 years. Medic One is going to provide the replacement pads and batteries for the Sheriff's Office when they're either used or when they need to be replaced due to maintenance.
I don't know, the other piece of this is there some kind of a charging mechanism that goes along with these units so that when a unit arrives on the scene, they don't jump out to do something and we got a dead battery?
Well, that's why we inspect the batteries as a routine process, just like the Sheriff's Office would inspect their vehicles or inspect part of a routine preventive maintenance. We go through that, we train them on that as well. And there's a checklist, and it's fairly simple, it doesn't take long. It's essentially train on the machine, let it spin up approximately 2 minutes, and then it turns, or actually less than that, it's approximately a minute, and then it turns around and it does a self-diagnostic on the machine whether the batteries need to be replaced or not.
Is this a new budget request?
Actually, it's included on the
Correct.
budget already, so it's not a budget request.
Okay.
We've in the budget and that preparations for 2019 and 2020, we committed to putting 60 AEDs with the Sheriff's Office. We've got a great price break by doing 50 now, and we'll do the remaining 10 after the first of the year. But this is a great price break. That savings that Romero referenced, at $10,000 savings, is locking in the current prices. We get a discount based on the number of 50 that we're purchasing. So it's already approved in the budget.
Is this new for the sheriff?
Yes. And we've been working with the sheriff. We talked with the sheriff prior to the budget process last year. I'll be honest, the sheriff's office has been very patient because every time I talk to the undersheriff Brana, he's like, where's my AEDs? Where's my AEDs? And so, in a good way. But we've been trying to work through the negotiation process, and I think we've got a good plan to get a very good product. It's a new product that's coming out. So these CR2, and we call them CR2 AEDs, we're going to be one of the first ones to field them. They've taken the battery and pad life expectancy from 2 years on our current models to 4 years. So that reduces our overall maintenance costs. And so it's a very simple device to use. And so we're very excited to get these out and get these on the street.
On one hand, I shouldn't be surprised, but I am surprised, because it seems to me I had the AED training 8 years ago or so with another jurisdiction, and even the Olympia Farmers Market has an AED on site, and you're able to document a ton of saves, life-saving applications. I'm really surprised our Sheriff's Department doesn't have these, really.
There are a large number of law enforcement agencies that do not, and I can understand the issue is a budgetary issue. We're putting $88,000 out. That if you look at the cost, you have to take something off your budget line if you want to add this. And in Medic One, we looked at this and we determined that the sheriff's office will be more than likely in a remote part of the county, or higher likelihood of being in a remote part of the county when they respond to a cardiac arrest situation. And also, 74% of cardiac arrests occur in the home. And so if the sheriff's office gets a dispatch to go out to somebody's house, we want them to have the tools to be able
Yes,
to do
yeah.
life-saving opportunities.
Absolutely. Well, I'm fully supported.
Can
Okay.
you tell folks what AED training means?
Automated electric,
Automatic external defibrillators. I have to look it up myself because I know what
Yeah.
AED is, but I don't always know what the acronym means.
yeah.
So when you say AED training, you mean that they're training to use these
Correct.
pieces of equipment?
Correct. We bring
Safely.
in training devices that simulate giving a shock, because we don't actually want to give shock to patients, role player patients during training, because that's not a good idea. But
frowned upon.
we'd have training units that come in so the sheriff's deputies can actually go through the process of simulating giving a shock to a patient. And we also, because Medic One's providing the training, we also bring role player patients that we pay for as well into the process, so that they are all part of that process for the training that the sheriff's deputies give, as realistic training as possible. Our intent was only to have the sheriff's office have to provide the deputies time. So we cannot provide backfill compensation, but all they have to do is invest in time. We're providing everything else.
Well, I think all three of us live in the county, so hurry up and get them outfitted, would you?
And all four of us, I would say, are getting older in life, so we may need it.
Yes, thank you. Thank you,
Okay,
Kurt.
thank you.
Agenda item number 5, Public Health Social Services, Healthcare Authority Contract, Criminal Justice Treatment Account.
Thank you, Commissioners. You also received a couple of briefings related to this particular item. And this item is for you to consider authorizing the Director of Public Health and Social Services to receive the annual allocation. In this case, it's $239,327, and the Criminal Justice Treatment Account that comes from the State of Washington Healthcare Authority. And this is related to the state fiscal year, which runs from July 1st, 2019 to June 30, 2020. The Criminal Justice Treatment Account, CJTA, is very prescriptive as to how that money needs to be distributed. So the state statute requires the CJTA panel needs to be assigned what programs, or there needs to be determined what programs this money can be used for. This panel is composed here in Thurston County by Superior Court, Drug Court, Public Defense, Sheriff's Office, and Prosecutor's Office, as well as a representative from the youth treatment provider from the community. They have gone through this process in September 2019, and they have identified 5 main goals as to how they would like to use this money in the upcoming year. One is the substance use disorder assessment when requested by defendants, defense attorney. Number 2, treatment and related services for individuals involved in drug court. Medication-assisted treatment for opioid use disorder, Thurston County Jail, that will be number 3. Number 4, parenting classes for CJTA eligible individuals. And number 5 is other substance use disorder treatment for justice-involved individuals. Carrie Henning is the county staff who oversees this program. She's available to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions?
No, we went through this in great detail the last 2 weeks.
Yes, we did.
Is there any mental health money going to be coming in through this? Does any of this have to do with mental health treatment for those that are involved in criminal justice?
Good morning, Commissioners. Carrie Hennon, Public Health and Social Services. The way the statute is written is that it is substance use disorder treatment and recovery support services for individuals with charges filed by the prosecuting attorney. So it's pretty specific and narrow, as Ramiro mentioned. Many individuals with a substance use disorder may have a co-occurring mental health issue, but this fund source calls out and funds substance use disorder in particular. There are other resources for mental health services, but not through this particular contract.
Is there enough resources for mental health treatment?
No, but that's a much bigger question.
Obviously,
Okay.
that was a trick question.
That
No.
was a trick question, that's right. Anyway, I'm just wondering if there's any way to address some of the issues where the state has shifted some responsibility to local government on mental health issues. That's all.
We invest a lot of our treatment sales tax in mental health services.
Okay.
But that's a separate fund source.
Looking
from
to
what we're
stretch just
discussing
a
here.
little bit.
No, nothing? Okay. Good.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Gary.
Thank you, Carrie.
Agenda item number 6, CPAD, interagency agreement with Department of Commerce for buildable lands 19 to 21.
So items 6A and 6B
And B.
are related.
Yeah.
Item 6A is requesting the board to authorize the Director of Community Planning and Economic Development, CPAD, to execute an agreement with the Department of Commerce to receive $308,000 for the Phase 2 work related to the 2021 Billable Lands Report. There is Thurston County is one of 7 counties in Western Washington responsible for developing a periodic reports under the Growth Management Act to review and evaluate this program, commonly known as Billable Lands. The 7 counties included from Western Washington is Whatcom County, is Snohomish County, King, Pierce, Kitsap, Thurston, and Clark counties. And again, this is a Phase 2. You may recall a couple of years ago, or last year, you authorized Phase 1 to continue this process. And the Thurston Regional Planning Council is the organization who is conducting this particular study. The study needs to be done by July 2021, and this Phase 2 money will allow us to complete that report in coordination with TRPC by that date. So item 6A is for you to authorize receiving the money from the Department of Commerce, $303,800. And item B is to authorize the director to supplement the current agreement with the Thurston Regional Planning Council for them to receive the additional money. Item 6B is for the amount of $278,800, a little bit less of the total grant amount, because the rest it will be to fund county staff in coordination with TRPC in developing this plan. Jeremy is here to answer any questions you may have related to those 2 topics.
Do you have questions?
Is it just because we're the top, is it just the 7 biggest counties that have to do it? Is that the 7? Well, Whatcom wouldn't be in there, would it?
That's primarily the case. The only exception would be Spokane County on the east side is not one of them. It primarily focuses on the central Puget Sound, and then Whatcom and Clark are also included because they're high-growth counties in the state of Washington.
And do we use this report to calculate, or what's the verb, I can't think, but to figure out what the UGA ought to be, or is this something set different?
Yes, sir. This is used to, quote-unquote, right-size the UGA to make sure that it's not too big and not too small for our future growth and development.
So how does Spokane deal with that?
Spokane County does a form of buildable lands analysis, but it's not required by the state law, by the Growth Management Act.
Go ahead.
Would this allow us to expand the urban growth area around the municipalities in Thurston County at some point, maybe if not right away?
What this is a report on the overall planned capacity of our current urban growth area. Should that urban growth area or the means and methods in the comprehensive plans not allow for enough area for future growth and development, that would be an option for the board to take up with the cities and towns in Thurston County, because it's a complicated effort to expand that. You not only expand the area, but you also have to look at the provision of municipal services inside of those boundaries. As we all know, the cities of Lacey, Olympia, and Tumwater are the sewer and water purveyors in the UGA, and it is also their future annexation area.
Jeremy's, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Maybe you'll answer my next question.
In some of this information related to the buildable lands report is included in the Habitat Conservation Plan, which has helped us for the pocket gopher. That's somewhat of a baseline as to how we determine what areas in the county needs to be built and how the overlay of the habitat of the pocket gopher will put in place to give us what is the number of acres that we need to mitigate. So that gives you a perspective as to how this report plays a role on other aspects of the county business.
Didn't we just get, I mean, this is looking forward, didn't we just get a buildable lands report, like for the, I remember seeing something coming through that I've read in the last few months saying that there wasn't a justification for, like, based on the analysis, there wasn't any justification for expanding UGA.
Yeah, the last buildable lands report was actually completed by TRPC in, I believe it was 2014 for this comprehensive plan update cycle, which also might explain why you're hearing about it now again, because our latest comprehensive plan update is based on that previous buildable lands report with a few updates in there to account for the pocket gopher.
So maybe I read it in the comp plan draft.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Does this help us towards solving the checkerboard approach to annexations used by past boards, in which so many of our densely populated areas, for an example, along Martin Way, were bypassed during the whole annexation process, and all the revenue-producing properties were then annexed into Lacey, for an example? Will this help us address any of that?
No, sir. This is a capacity report that's a requirement of the Growth Management Act that includes an assessment of the buildable lands within the cities and also in the urban growth areas to make sure we can accommodate all our future growth and development in there. It does not actually approach nor consider the specific annexations that occur in the county. It does, of course, look at the utilities and facilities available for that future growth and development.
Any benefit to the county in that, say, the north side of Hawks Prairie area that's not yet in Lacey but might be a future annexation issue? Does it fit? And what I'm getting at is I want to try to see that we get away from this checkerboard annexation business. So if it was to be expanded somewhere, I'd like to make sure that, well, they have to take, I don't know, not just the cream, I guess, that they take the problem areas as well. And now that just happens to apply. I'm right now talking about Lacey, but it could apply to anybody. Is there going to be any benefit there at all?
This will help project the future growth and development in those areas. But again, it's not a report or assessment of annexations inside of the county. It's an assessment of what land and areas are available for us to grow and develop into.
Okay.
Is it the same section of the plan that talks about mining and the gravel operations to maintain, that we have mandatory aggregate and such for
No,
as a
sir,
resource? That's a different complete?
yes, sir, that's a different requirement in the Growth Management Act. That is the requirement the county planned for its resources. This is for our future urban growth and development.
But it would exclude that?
It would exclude those.
Exclude
Those are
that
usually
piece.
out in the rural county.
Okay. Thank you, Jeremy. Anything else?
No.
All right. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
That takes care of 6A and B.
Yes, sir.
And we'll move on to, hang on, turn the page to 7, County Manager, Resolution of Intent. for the sales and use tax. Is this the 1406?
Yes,
there is.
Commissioners, and this is I believe you're tracking on this particular item.
Yeah.
So back in, on the 2019 legislative session, the legislature passed a Senate House Bill 1406, which authorized the governing body, city or county, to impose a local sales tax for the acquisition, construction, rehabilitation of affordable housing or facilities providing supporting housing. And this is not a new tax on the sales tax. It's just taking a portion of the allocation of the sales tax that goes to the state. So I just want to make sure the public understand this is not a new sales tax. It's just taking a portion of the already allocated sales tax that goes to the state. There is an interesting formulation in terms of how that can be applied. And also that is related to the timing as to how we can, counties and cities can exercise their the legislative action. And just is each city can probably take an action in exercising that option, and that will be probably is only 0.08% of that allocation of the state sales tax, unless they have a specific funding source related to housing-related activities. So the City of Olympia is the only one who has passed that, and they can probably access to the 0.014%. That is the maximum. The county has also taken this action because we do have many programs. They meet that criteria. So the county can access the 0.014% of this opportunity. The timing is a little bit different. This is, has a sunset date of 20 years. And how the timing in which the county can take an action and the cities can take an action has an influence on the cap on the next 20 years as to how the county can probably take advantage of this particular taxation. So back in July 23rd, 2019, the Board of County Commissioners took an action of intent to exercise the legislative authority to access this particular tax incentive. Follow that, the cities of Olympia and Tumwater also did the same, but also took an action related to the implementation. So you need to take two actions in here, is the resolution of intent and also an ordinance of implementation, two different actions. And that's action number 7A is 7B for you today. That created a little bit of an interesting dynamics. The city of Lacey and city of Olympia and city of Tumwater took those actions, which the statute determines that by them taking an action, take the capacity of the county in the future years of growth. So we had a great conversation with the cities of Olympia and Tumwater. The attorneys had a good conversation as well, and they understand the nuances of this, so they rescinded both of the ordinances, both Olympia and Tumwater, and allow the county to take those actions today, perhaps for your consideration, and that way they will be taking a follow-up action and exercising their legislative authority. And that is probably the timing in which how this is an interesting process, because everything's related to the cap, the maximum that a county can access. If a city takes an action before the county does and the implementation, the cap is reduced to the county. And just to give you an impact of the dollars and cents, this particular legislation has a potential to generate countywide, including the cities and counties, about $800,000 a year for the next 20 years. When the city of Olympia took an action to implement this taxation, that had an impact to the county cap of just about, the maximum would have been $350,000 a year. So, and again, I from my point of view, I really appreciate the cities of Olympia and Tumwater and their respective councils to be open to this conversation, to take an action to allow the county to come in and give the county access in the long term. And that is really the two actions that you have in here today. The 7A is the resolution of intent, and 7B is an ordinance in which you will be implementing the taxation. Begins in 2020.
Didn't we already do a resolution of intent and did it first?
Yes, on July 23rd. But considering the timing in which all the cities have taken that, I think it will be prudent for you to retake this action again. And that is, it's just lining up the timelines of every single city. The city of Lacey has not taken any action yet, but they're waiting for the board to take action on this.
Go ahead.
I just want to clarify something. You made it sound like we're going to take this action today, and this is on next week's
Next week.
agenda.
Sorry.
So
Thank you.
should we put it on today's agenda and take that action today to expedite this whole process for everybody?
You could. I did give the city managers an indication that you will be considering this item on the 22nd of October, and they're okay with it.
And that's satisfactory?
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to
And I've
clarify
met
that.
with Olympia and Tumwater and thanked them very much for rescinding their intent and the legislative piece in order for the county to move on. That we greatly appreciate that. And I told them also the 22nd next week is when we're taking action. That gives them sufficient time to move forward with their own agencies.
So everything will work if we do
Yep.
it then rather than today? Okay.
Yeah, and the Attorney General has until June of next year to interpret what this new legislation means, because there's a lot of questions regarding that legislative piece. But this $800,000 that the county will receive, not in new taxes, but in the $800,000 that we're not giving to the state, that we're retaining, has a dedicated purpose. It's not just in our ending fund balance, going to the general, it's
It is specific to affordable housing
To
efforts.
housing,
And
right.
just to be clear, the $800,000 a year is not just to Thurston County, it's Thurston County region.
For the region,
which includes
right.
the cities as well.
but it's a
Just, I want to
dedicated,
clarify that.
dedicated amount
Yeah.
for anybody, any city.
And the resolution of intent that you have also includes the intent of the board to have more of a regional conversation with the city partners as to how we can maximize this investment to really start, because if we were to take our individual, allocations that are a result of this new law, we may see the benefits of that. But if we combine the efforts, we could probably maximize that investment to really address the affordable housing here in Thurston County, or at least attempt to.
And the cities are on board with that as well, as we can address, and they would probably use a portion of it in a regional approach,
Yeah.
but also retain some for their own use.
Yeah, I
within
believe
their
there is
cities.
I believe there is an interest by the cities to have this conversation, and the forum in which this conversation have occurred is the Regional Housing Council.
Right. But it cannot be used just for a tent mitigated site. It has to be used for housing.
No, it's not for homeless mitigation, it's for
Right.
affordable housing specifically.
Did you have more?
Just to point out, if people are trying to track this, if it's confusing how this cap is calculated and why the timing is important, don't feel bad, because it took lawyers and councils and guidance from Commerce and 2 meetings to myself to even be able to understand why the timing mattered to the overall cap. It's really complicated and not very clearly worded in the statute, so.
Yeah, and I agree. The statute for a non-lawyer is extremely complicated. But I think by having those conversations with the city partners really put us in the position to understand the nuances of this new law. And that's here we are. And I think this is a good step.
The takeaway is that your jurisdictions are working together, collaborating, and structuring this in a way that maximizes value to the community. And I also thank Tumwater and Olympia for working with us.
Right.
And I think that our approach of trying to do this in the best way is a good approach. So.
Right.
Point well taken, and that's why the Attorney General's office has given 8 or 9, 10 months to interpret this thing
Yeah.
and to let us know. Very complex.
Meanwhile, we have to take actions.
In the meantime,
Yeah,
we
in
have
the meantime.
deadlines.
Before the interpretation
Right.
is done, yeah.
Yeah, so that takes care of 7A and B. Any further discussion on that? Okay, then we'll adjourn that meeting and move into a public hearing. Public Works is for the 6-year Transportation Improvement Program. the 20
Yeah.
20 to 25.
Yeah, this is a step that you need to take in terms of hearing public testimony to the proposed 6-year transportation improvement program for 2020-2025. And as you notice on your agenda, the only action that you have for you is to move to close the public hearing. The actual action is related to the budget. There right now is a schedule for you to take actions on the budget in October 29, 2019. So you will see a resolution enacting on approving this 6-year transportation improvement program. Related to this program, I will offer for you consideration a friendly amendment at that time. And before taking action is to include pedestrian improvements on Carpenter Road. And that is related to the potential regional transition center located on that, because if we were to move and use as a homeless mitigation site or a regional transition center, we need to do some pedestrian improvements on Carpenter Road north of Marvin Way. And in order for us to do that, we need to include it in the transportation improvement program. So I will offer an amendment for your consideration before you take a final action on this, as adding this particular item. And this is just a way to continue to work on that particular site. Any questions on that?
Yes. Do you have a question?
Yeah. So last year, did we take, every year we just bump it up by 1 year on that 6-year plan, is that right?
Yeah, and it's prescriptive by law.
And will we be including, or do we continue to include the upgrade by Nisqually Middle School over at Marvin and Stillicum, even though the federal government is holding us up on that particular project?
That are you talking about the Stillicum project from Martin Road to Pacific, right?
Well, Marvin
to Pacific.
And Stillicum at Nisqually, that
Yeah,
safety
it's
intersection.
It's a segment. There's not
Yes.
just an intersection. It's
Right,
it's
it's a
improvements.
segment, sidewalks
It
and
is
everything.
included on the transportation improvement program as a line item.
And that's been on there for the last 4 years then?
You're going to test my memory, perhaps a little longer than that.
Even longer than that. Hopefully, we'll get the federal folks to cooperate with us for the safety of the kids. That's good.
My question is administrative, and that is, I'm not showing on my calendar for next Tuesday this public hearing or the BOH, Board of Health hearing, agenda rather.
BOH?
Board of Health?
You don't have a Board of Health next week, Commissioner.
Okay, so that needs to be
It's on
removed
the
again
agenda.
then? Okay. But I don't have this public hearing showing up on my calendar.
It's at 3 o'clock, we'll add it, but it's part of your agenda. But we'll add as a specific
Okay,
item.
okay.
If that is
I got
part-
Gary's birthday thing on here. Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're right. It's not on here.
Okay, so then that takes care of that one. Then we move on to 3B. I'm sorry, not 3B, but B, public hearing, and this is for the Initiative 976
Yeah,
resolution.
for your consideration is for you to take an action in opposing initiative measure number 976. And for your consideration, you have 2 actions depending on the public testimony that you might receive. One is to move close the public hearing, and the next is move to approve the resolution. On your agenda, I have an item for you to go through and revisit some of the changes that you had. I have in a bill format. They will walk through just to make sure that I capture your suggestions last week.
Oh, good, thank you.
So I do have that on your agenda later on.
That was a fun discussion last week. I like that. Questions or comments on that one?
Not on that one, but I do want to clarify something for that public hearing.
Well, hang on, on which
Oh.
one?
Well, the one for the 22nd that's not on, apparently, your calendar, or maybe not on mine, is that
Well,
true?
the 6-year transportation plan and I-976 aren't on the calendar.
So what Commissioner Hutchins
So which question?
is not included on the master calendar.
Right.
But we have officially made a public notice.
Okay.
So this is just administrative.
Oh, I get
adding
that. That's
to
why I
the
said this is
calendar.
administrative. I get
Yeah.
that. But when you said you have a question on
Well,
the
no, I
public
mean,
hearing, I didn't know which
but
one you're talking about.
We're gonna have that at 5:30, the one about the
That's
courthouse.
different. We
right?
haven't
Right.
got to that
So
point
we're
yet.
not there yet.
Okay, good.
Stop
We went
jumping
back,
ahead.
okay, I see, okay.
Anything else on 976, Gary?
Nope, good
Aye.
with, good with 976.
Nope,
And again,
Deal with it
we'll
later.
discuss that in more detail later on your
Right.
agenda today.
Okay. Now,
Okay, that's all.
the 5:30 public hearing
Good.
on the resolution or for the ordinance for a courthouse.
Yeah, this is for you to receive public testimony and for your consideration to reissue the ordinance where you may consider submitting to the qualified electors to the county on a special election to be held April 28, 2020, to authorize the county to increase the levy regular property taxes in excess of the limitations as stated on RCW 8455. The proposal is, and again, is for you to hear public testimony and for you to consider taking an action in enacting that. You don't have to take the second action. This is just for you to consider as an option. And we have received some written testimony, significant in opposition of this. And also we have received via email in support of that as well. As soon as we get leading to the public hearing, I will give you a full report of all the public testimony or written testimony we have received so far on this particular public hearing.
Go ahead.
Okay. In regard to that public testimony that we're going to get, as it comes in, at what point do we as a board see that public testimony that's coming in?
So you have received all.
All of it?
Yeah, and we have provided you via email as well as hard copy.
Okay.
And as well as it comes through the county email system, which also you are included in that.
Okay.
So all the public testimony we have received so far via the method you have already been given to you.
Okay.
As it comes in?
As it comes in, yeah.
Okay. 'Cause sometimes we had, stuff collected and
Right.
given to us at one time. but
And
we've been
sometimes
seeing courthouse stuff all along the way.
it comes in, and depending on some citizens use the county web email, and that's how you get that information. Mr. Perez has come and has provided a report of many citizens who are in opposition of that, and he has provided a couple of updates, as he continues to receive additional information from citizens, and those reports have made available to you as well.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments about that? And then that's next week at 5:30. Anything else? Good, okay. That takes care of the BoCC and public hearing for the 22nd. And now we've got this for an hour and 40, and we're going to take a break now before we get into proclamations and awards to give staff and everybody a chance to take a break. So we'll be back at 10 minutes. You do the math according to your own watch. 10 minutes. Thank you.
I think that's about.
Welcome back. We're going to continue on with the agenda setting work session, and we're at Proclamations and Awards right now. So
Yes.
Labanita, please.
Labanita Bomar, Clerk of the Board. We have reviewed last week the proclamation for the Ira L. Carter VFW Post 318, an Auxiliary Centennial Day. It's a mouthful, but it's a very special day for them, 100 years. And Amy Buckley, Commander, and Ira Cater will be present to accept the proclamation, and that particular Ira is a descendant of the original gentleman who started this post.
Oh, wonderful.
And I have updated the proclamation in your packet. The next proclamation that I am proposing for November the 5th is Honor and Empower the Centennial Anniversary of Zonta International. That proclamation has also been updated.
What is that?
Zonta?
Yeah.
Maybe you didn't, maybe you were gone when we talked about it?
Yes, he
Yeah,
wasn't here.
I
last
was
week.
not here. Yeah, yes, I was gone. Sorry.
Yes. Well,
I apologize that my question is redundant.
not redundant, it's a very interesting, I learned a lot from Thomasina, actually regarding Zonta and its history. And it's very interesting of their worldwide, I will say, history. And so we'll be celebrating that, if you agree, on November the 5th.
We've already agreed on that, haven't we?
Yes,
Yes.
Yeah.
but the finalization and signing the proclamations, I will be bringing that forward.
Let me turn to Thomasina Cooper. Do you want to talk about Zonta?
I would love to talk about Zonta.
Okay. give her a
Very
microphone.
interesting.
Here, you can have mine.
So Zonta International is a women's organization, service organization. There are 2 branches here in Thurston County, and they serve a variety of different organizations throughout our community. They do service projects. They often benefit women's organizations and do a whole variety of both donation drives, fundraisers, acts of service themselves, that kind of thing. Very active members of our community.
Thank you. And I've met several women that are members of Zonta, too. And that took me back a couple of years. When I asked, what's Zonta? Boy, I got a little bit more than the elevator speech, which is really good because it's a great organization. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Do you have anything more on, any questions or comments on IRA or on Zonta?
No, sir.
No.
The other proclamation that has been brought forward, this is new. This is for National Adoption Day. Thurston County will be celebrating that on November the 21st. Pam Hartman Beyer has requested the proclamation be put on. I'm suggesting that it be on the agenda of November 12th, since the board will not be here the week of November the 19th.
That's correct. And the 12th follows
It does.
Veterans Day, and we typically don't have one on a Tuesday following a 3-day holiday.
That is correct, and I have checked with the county manager, and he has suggested that we have a board meeting on that day.
Has he? Well, I'll ask him then.
Which you,
Oh, hello.
Well, the reason is the week before we cancel because I think you have another commitment, but we're going to the Washington State Association of Counties annual legislative conference in Spokane, Washington.
On the,
On the week prior,
The
which is the week,
after,
after.
the 19th.
the 19th.
And we'll be in Spokane, so the week
Yeah,
before is the 3-day
thank
weekend.
you. Yeah,
Yes.
Is it the week after Thanksgiving then?
yeah, and we're planning to have one as well.
Okay.
Yes.
So we just can't skip it. It doesn't seem reasonable. Okay.
I'm sorry, you Commissioner Messer had a question.
no, I was just trying to get the date straight, but I think I got it.
Yeah, I was off. Yeah.
So we'll do, let's see, Adoption Day is the 21st, okay. And did you say that Pam Hartman Beyer has folks coming in?
I'm not exactly certain all that will be here. She will be sending me an email to confirm. I know that maybe one judge, there's a 99% chance that that judge will be here. I'm not certain exactly of all the details as of yet.
because there are some cool adoption stories.
Yes.
Commissioner Edwards, please go ahead.
Well, I think in the past, the court has invited us to come over to an adoption event. I can't remember all the particulars, but you're right.
Well, that-
A lot of stories on that, but we're gonna do it on the 12th. I'm just trying to get that clarified. So it is
Yes.
the 21st, but we are gonna do it
Do
the
it on the
12th.
12th.
Okay.
Okay.
And the event that you're speaking of will be November the 12th. Excuse me, November the 21st.
But we won't be here, so we'll do it
Right.
on the 12th.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
Have we heard anything from the court on the day that they're gonna do this in the court? Has Pam said anything about that we went to in the past?
The only date that I have been given is the 21st. I have not
Okay.
been given any other day in which
Okay.
they're going to have activities.
Okay, good enough.
All right, thank you. Advisory boards and commissions.
Well, first I would like to say that today in the Olympian, thanks to Sarah, our Olympian reporter, who is here today with us, we have an article about boards and commissions.
Oh, good.
And it is an excellent article. And Sarah came to Megan and I last week, and we pulled it together, and it is in the Olympian today. So thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
The other thing on our agenda today is a couple of applications. We've just seen these a couple of weeks now. Barry Halverson for the Planning Commission and Molly Carmody. There's one vacancy for District 2. In your packet, you will see their applications, and you will see some letters from Polly Taylor supporting Molly, Dave Little supporting Molly, Dennis Langhans supporting Molly, and Madeline Bishop, all supporting Molly for the Planning Commission. They're in your packet for review.
So the question, and this has been here for several weeks, and we're putting it off because we've opened it up to
For 1 month.
gather for 1 month?
Yes.
When does it close?
The end of this month, October 30th, 31st.
31st-ish?
It's 31 days.
Okay. So we'll still wait and see if we
Yes.
gather more applicants. Do you have any
The
questions?
Planning Commission, I assume the Planning Commission opening is mentioned in the article,
Yeah.
so that might be a.
Yeah, the article might bring forward
Yeah.
some candidates. I guess
Go ahead.
on this topic, we've kind of been holding off on the one application that we've had on Area Agency on Aging. We've waited, but we have now got word back that they're fine with this appointment. But I do not know this person, so I'm going by what the Area Agency group is recommending. But because Sarah wrote that article, and maybe we should give this like another week to see if we get a response. And has that hurt anything I mean, we're asking for community input. I'd hate to have 10 more applications come in and we already filled it, you know? And so would one more week hurt anything?
No.
No, okay, so.
No.
I was ready to move ahead on that, but
Yeah.
now that Sarah wrote that article, I think maybe we should wait.
It's a great observation to wait, especially with the timing of the article. But I always have that urgency with the Area Agency on Aging that we haven't had it filled for some time to get it appointed.
Well, that's because you represent that demographic, sir.
Yes, but you represent the agency.
I think we can wait one more week.
But let's wait. And perfect timing, too.
Yes, it is.
So thank you, Sarah. Appreciate that.
Sounds good.
That's all from me today.
Okay.
Got it.
Thank you.
PIO check-in.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Megan, your Public Information Supervisor. We're working on finishing up some projects with TC Media, including the filming of the Law and Justice panel that took place at St. Martin's last month. It fell through the cracks, I apologize. So we're getting that one finalized so we can get that one posted on our YouTube. There's one small adjustment that needs to be made to Commissioner Menzer's Thurston County Connection video, and then that one will be ready to post this week. So we can start spreading that one out there. And then we met with Commissioner Hutchings to begin planning his Thurston County Connection episode, which will be released in November. This will be the last Thurston County Connection episode of the year. We'll come back in January and film the commissioners panel like we do every year. People really enjoy that one, so we'll make sure that we get that one on scheduled so that we can go in and record that with TC Media. Jblm Day of Service is happening on Thursday of this week. TC Media again this year is going to be filming or making a show about that. Day of Service is when volunteers from JBLM's 627th Air Base Group come and help complete projects for some local nonprofits. It's a great event. The nonprofits love it. The air basemen love it too. It's a really cool event. And then we have the site and date finalized for our next offsite meeting. It's going to be January 28th at 5:30 p.m. at the Washington State Farm Bureau building, which is off of Carpenter Road in Lacey. We'll begin promoting that probably mid-December, but I just wanted to make sure that you knew that we have that scheduled, and we will make sure we get the notices out in plenty of time for that one. And then finally, I have a draft legislative agenda one-pager that's gone to Ramiro. Once we get that draft a little bit more finalized, we'll get it to you guys for review. Any questions for me?
Any questions for Megan?
No, sir.
Ty, any questions for Megan?
What day was the day of service, you said?
It's on Thursday.
This Thursday.
This Thursday. They have opening ceremonies at the Fairgrounds Expo Center at 8 a.m.
So
8:30 a.m.
Do we know if it's in the morning or at lunch where the commissioners or a commissioner can attend to say a few words? Yeah, please.
I am.
I have been representing the Commissioner's Office in planning the JBLM Day of Service. So I do believe that we have got Ramiro and Hutch and Gary signed up for lunch deliveries on Thursday, and I expect to have that plan finalized in my hot little hands soon, and I will share it. I'm also expecting to receive bullet points, speaking points for the morning ceremony opening, to which Commissioner Edwards will attend and give those speaking points. So as soon as I get those in my hot little hands as well, I will share them.
Do I have to put a yellow magnetic phone or something on my car or something to deliver lunch?
That's up to you.
Thank you for putting that together and representing
course.
us.
What time is
Alcina.
the opening in the morning?
The opening ceremonies begin at 8 o'clock
8 o'clock. I'll be there.
out
too.
at the fairgrounds.
I will attend that as well.
Oh, you will be in attendance. Wonderful. Thank you very much, Ramiro.
That's this Thursday.
Correct.
I'm unavailable.
You
For
are,
us.
unfortunately.
I didn't have
lunch
Thomasina
delivery,
just
got it.
schedule
Okay.
me out, just for the record.
Okay.
You are held for next year.
Go ahead.
I thought that I was going to do this because you were unavailable. No?
It's on my calendar for lunch.
Oh,
You
The
are
morning-
unavailable in the
I'm
morning.
jammed up.
oh, the
Correct.
morning is, okay, that was the issue? Because I
Correct.
thought the chair usually did
Unavailable in the
that.
morning.
Okay, good enough. Vice chair will fill in.
Thank you, sir. Anything else for PIO?
No, sir?
Ty?
No.
And for the people watching, we still only have one camera that's operating today? And why?
I don't know.
Is
Once
it
we're
county
done,
or is it TCM?
once we're done with this meeting, Thurston Community Media is going to come in and look at the system and try and, I think they're
Troubleshoot
going
it.
to reboot something to see if it'll make
Okay.
the other ones turn on.
But hopefully
But they're
it'll
going to be working on it up until the meeting starts.
The 2 o'clock meeting, hopefully it'll be functioning. Okay.
Yes.
And I know you're working on mics, and when's Brian come back?
November 12th.
Oh, just in time. Okay. Great.
But we
Thank you.
have the next best thing.
Oh, yeah, we have Brian Stunt Double here. Yeah, Neil. Thank you, Neil,
Stunt double.
for stepping in. And that's it, thank you. Briefing, public hearing, decisions pending, anything? Nope.
No, commissioners.
And that takes us to commissioner items. The first one is U.S. Fish and Wildlife 5-year environmental, ESA review. Environmental, what is it? Endangered Species Act,
Yeah,
the
this
response letter.
If I may, there is in the process of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife to go their regular 5-year update of the endangered species related is across the region, but includes the Mazama Pocket Gopher as well. They have given us the opportunity to provide a written testimony, written comments to them for them to consider during the update, and the letter is due by the end of October. The staff has developed a draft response. You reviewed that last week, in which you provided some comments. So here I have is what I believe I capture the conversation that you had last week related to the letter. So maybe I can give you a couple of minutes to see the revisions that I included to make sure that I capture the board's direction. And Josh Cummins is here if you have any questions. The idea will be feel comfortable with this proposed changes, revisions, then we'll finalize the letter, circulate for signatures, and then we'll submit that to U.S. Fish and Wildlife.
All right, thank you. We'll just take a few minutes to review it.
Just in red is where you've made adjustments,
That is
right?
correct. Yeah.
I've just got one question, and I don't know if it's proper English or not. The Board of County Commissioners, in the last page,
Yeah.
the Board of County Commissioners would also like for you to consider, is that right? Or would like you to consider?
Where are you?
Just sounded kind of funny.
Oh, right here, this red, okay.
I just
For
wondered
you to
about.
consider.
I don't know, I mean, that's just looked funny
Yeah,
to me.
that's fine.
Yeah.
But I don't know, you guys,
Yeah.
Yep.
that was the only thing I noticed in it.
What I took the liberty to add another comment that was not part of your discussion.
Yeah.
And that is the last on the last page.
And that's perfect.
Where I added,
Yep.
in the meantime, we would like to encourage the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to continue reviewing and processing, receiving and processing individual HCPs to help the citizens of Thurston County.
Yep.
I
Perfect.
think you
I
don't need
wanted them
that.
to do that.
You don't need that apostrophe. I don't think.
Yep, okay.
All right. Any other feedback?
I can live with it.
Yeah, I'm okay with it. You all right with it?
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
we'll finalize that, and you will see circulating for your signature as soon as feasible.
Number 2, City of Yelm proposed annexation.
So I'm going to go by this packet of information, and on the back is highlighted in blue. In this map, second page
Thank you.
of the packet.
Thank you, Joshua.
Thank you. Also here, the second map, third page, gives you the overall location of the proposed annexation in relation to the overall city limits. And at this point, staff has gone through this process and have provided some recommendations for the board not to oppose this annexation. This annexation does not create any islands, and in fact, if you see is the progression as to how they can probably start eliminating the potential islands created. There is a timeline in which is October 17th. That will be Thursday, in which the board can exercise your actions to oppose this annexation. And again, the staff, including myself, is recommended for you to consider approving this annexation.
I don't have any questions on it myself.
Today's the 15th. There's a timeline for October 17th. Request for review is not received. Okay.
Do we know what's motivating this from Yelm's perspective? Where is this coming from?
I think it's related to utilities, and they already provide those utilities to those parcels, water and sewer, and they just like to incorporate it as part of their municipal boundaries.
Yeah, and apparently the majority of the property owners are in agreement with this. So.
Yeah, there's, as far as I know, there's no opposition to this.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, 3 members request, okay. Okay, any other questions? Nope, nothing? No. All right, so where we stand, we're not going to challenge this.
That's what I'd like to hear. Is that okay? Okay. Thank you.
You got what you needed?
Yep, thank you, Commissioners.
And item number 3, Animal Services Budget Proposal. Thanks, Josh.
I'm going to go by this packet that you have in front of you, Commissioners. And last Wednesday, we had a joint city managers and county managers meeting where the executive director for Animal Services came and presented a, a proposed budget for 2019. And I believe Commissioner Misters, who serves at the board of JASCOM, he already alerted us a couple of weeks ago that perhaps this might be coming. This is a little more in detail as to what that is. In this proposal, page number 1, overall, there's some cost increases they have incurred. And in this proposal, they include the creation of 3 new positions. 2 positions is related to the animal care technicians, and that is to increase the level of care inside the shelters. There will be 2 positions, and that is on your line item down here, number 3, at a cost of $156,500. And the other significant comment is an additional 1 field officer that will be on this line item for a cost of $102,992. And the rest is additional feasibility study, as well as a new software system to help them go through this process. In the back, you see a little more in detail as to how the budget is composed, and also gives you information related to the assessment by the 4 jurisdictions that will be Lacey, Olympia, Tumwater, and Thurston County, which are participating on JASCOM. If you don't have any questions, maybe I can walk you through the next page. And there's a little more in detail as to the budget increases the JASCOM is proposing. So I have the order wrong. So if I can go to the second one, it says no subsidy. Right?
No subsidy, got it.
So if you focus on the Thurston County line, and on the orange bottom part, you see the comparison of the 2018 budget of $628,561. That's what we have allocated in 2019. And the proposed 2020 with those elements that I just highlighted. The proposed county contribution will be an additional 31.6%, which equates to an additional $198,619. And then you can probably see across for the city of Olympia on the same terms will be an additional $73,686. For Lacey is $78,828, and for Tumwater will be an additional $35,351. When I received this information last Wednesday, I stated to the executive director that perhaps the county was a little bit too late in terms of the budget development, because most of the additional budget recommendations and requests, the board entertained those back in June, early in the year. And at this point, I explained that we already held a public hearing. The ordinances and all the documentation has been prepared for you to potentially take an action on the budget on October 29, 2019. And as a result, it was a bit too late perhaps to come with this proposal, a budget proposal. So on the first page, they call $350,000 subsidy. And that is probably their proposal as to how they can probably bridge in 2019. They propose additional expenditures. They do have a fund balance. Their proposal is to use $350,000 out of the ending the fund balance, somewhat of a subsidy to compensate for the additional increases. If that takes in place, go back down to the orange area of the spreadsheet, then the impact to Thurston County will be 2.13% or an additional $13,370 in 2020. That seems to be, not much of an impact if you look in terms of the overall budget of the county. However, at this point, we don't have a line item that increases those costs. You may exercise your action on a quarterly budget amendment next year if you'd like to include this. But I'd just like to make sure that you track on this thing. Although perhaps there is a subsidy for 2020 of $350,000, that subsidy is it's only for 1 year. So if this is approved by JOSCOM and the additional 3 positions, that it becomes the baseline for 2021. So then in 2021, the subsidy disappears, and the county will be exposed to come up with $198,000 additional. So I just want to make sure some of that dynamics they plays out on this proposal.
Plus, it hasn't been discussed or
It hasn't
approved
been
by
discussed,
JASCOM.
yeah.
This is just a proposal,
Yeah.
which I only saw yesterday, and our meeting is next Wednesday. So I don't know if there'll be even an appetite on the board to do it this way, but
What I'm doing is
I'm
just
glad they gave us some options.
to bring you awareness of what I received last week from the executive director, understanding that JASCOM has not even taken an action on this. But again, really I just want to bring this information to you at the right time, if I may.
It brings up a lot of questions. Go ahead, Gary.
And which fund would cover this?
Most likely general fund.
Is there anything in the dog licensing fund or?
You could consider increase the cost for licensing pets in unincorporated areas of the county.
Does that now cover our existing cost?
Yeah, for the most part.
And how long has it been since there's been an increase?
That I cannot answer that question. I don't have that in my mind.
I'll just throw in 2 comments just for your background. My feeling is that the proposal for a field service software and 2 animal care techs, well, first you can see on the staffing, the historical staffing levels, that it's not like JASCOM has gone crazy with staffing. I mean, we're looking at, right now, they're basically, if you look at the chart on the first page, the staffing is exactly the same as it was in 2008, with the exception of they've added like a position and a half for shelter operations. So they've added a grand total of 0.4% of one position over 11 years. So this is not an organization that's been fattening up its staff. 1 animal care tech, I think, is absolutely a non-negotiable because of problems with being able to meet basic requirements of cleaning cages and basic hygiene and exercising animals in a way that's humane. So whether it's subsidy or non-subsidy, I will support at least 1 of the care techs because it's just, from what I've seen, I've done tour over there and talked to staff, it's just not negotiable. Everything else, I'm going to, hopefully we can find a way to reduce. Just for purposes of the board's understanding, when I looked at I've gotten a whole series of animal response, citizen complaints this year, and I've got another one to talk about. And our lack of, so looking at this 2019 budget as it stands, the additional assessment that we would have to pay in order to fully serve county services for field response is $113,000. Now that would go up with these new percentages, but I just wanted you to have that as like a point of sort of comparison. Our total assessment for 2019 was $628. We would have had to have paid an additional $113 to get full field services and be on par with all the other jurisdictions, which is something that, given how frequently we're dealing with citizen issues, it's something that I would have said we should talk about. Now that's kind of thrown into limbo now because we've got increases for other reasons, but I just wanted you to kind of have those numbers to play with in your head. I don't know what that number would be under this new proposed budget, but obviously more than 113, maybe. Well, we can say it's if it's a 2% increase or it's a 31% increase.
Well, you will add the additional 112,000, I believe. 102,000 for an additional field officer, in addition to the proposed budget. That's what you're saying, right?
What I'm saying is the county pays a reduced assessment in order to we've opted out of field service, except unless humans are at risk. And in order to bump our assessment back up, it would have been 113,000 additional for 2019.
Yeah.
A little more than that because we're talking about an increase of the budget. But I just wanted folks to have that to play in their mind. Now it looks like under any scenario we're going to be paying, unless the Animal Services does the budget subsidy scenario, under any of these other scenarios, for example, the no subsidy scenario, our assessment would go up 198,000, or in this other scenario with no additional staffing, 81,000. So if you look at that, if you look at the no additional staffing sheet, this is saying, this is just not adding anybody, just what Thurston County's assessment would go up based on its normal operations, maintenance level, I guess is the right phrase. And that's a 13% increase by itself.
Yeah, but it does have so go back to additional proposed expenses.
Yeah.
If you take the 3 positions out
Yeah.
of this table, there is a little bit of an increase based on the other items.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And that's 13%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even though it says paid from reserves on this sheet, though. If you look in the front sheet, they have stars next to everything but the staffing.
That's the proposal.
Yeah.
That equates to the.
Oh, it's IS support.
Yeah.
So based on the IS support, which is not.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what we're up against.
Right. And and that's a good point in terms of the level of services to unincorporated areas of the county. The additional field officer proposed in this budget, which is 102,000 in here, I did ask the question if that will perhaps increase the level of service of response to Thurston County, and the answer was no.
That was my question.
Yeah. No,
It's not increasing services at all.
Because is related to what Commissioner Menser stated is the assessment and the reduction.
We have to pay our same proportionate share in order to get those services. This is just trying to fully staff the services that they're obligated by contract to provide now.
And even an increase of our fees, of licensing fees, would not garner any additional services to the county, to the folks. It would just pay for offsetting the increase.
Well, I
I'm
cannot.
guessing.
Well, I cannot.
Well, we
I
don't
cannot
know.
confirm that your
Okay.
comment, Commissioner, because you have not explored the option of increasing those fees.
So
And
let me ask.
for how much?
Okay, and JASCOM the board hasn't voted on this, and are they waiting to get response from the county?
Not necessarily. We just, last month, we were given a preliminary, like kind of a preview, like, hey guys, this is coming. And I brought it up then at our session. And now this is the next meeting. And basically at the table, as I reported last month, everybody was like, I don't think we are going to be able to afford this. Tumwater in particular was with me. And Thurston County and Tumwater were kind of like, this isn't going to fly. So that's why then Sarah developed these alternative proposals. And that's why this is kind of a response to our sticker shock.
Yeah.
And so now she's come up with, okay, well, if we added 1 person or we added 2 people or we did a budget subsidy, I mean, here's how we could get there. And then JASCOM will discuss this next week.
So what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Does JASCOM look to the jurisdictions to see what is affordable before they, as a board, decide on staffing? Or do they go ahead and, hey, here's our staffing, now you're committed, you have to pay?
That's what I was trying to figure out.
Oh.
Nobody had a great answer to that.
Nobody
damn it.
got a great answer, that's right.
So we're
I think,
committed, if they went ahead and increased staffing, we're committed to pay
Well, we're
something.
not committed without a budget authority
You're not-
exercised by the
yeah,
board.
I get that.
You're not committed because I don't believe JASCOM has the imposition to a legislative authority on a budget-related item.
For any jurisdiction.
So I think the answer to your question may be related to timing, meaning when this proposal came to be for you to exercise your judgment, whether you'd like to entertain or not, whatever decision the board would have made during the budget process, then Commissioner Messer would have brought this to the JASCOM and said, this is the direction of the board. So it's a little bit off, at least from my point of view, it's a little bit off in terms of the timing as to when this proposal came to you.
I know over the last 2 years being on JASCOM on the board and working with not only constituents but county residents regarding animal issues in the county, I know if we go the route of increasing fees, licensing fees, the obvious question is going to be, oh good, I'm going to pay more, am I getting more services? And the answer is going to be no. You just, it's offsetting the increase in costs, just the cost of living. Mm-hmm. Is what it sounds like, but we don't know what those numbers are for the county revenue for dog fees and licensing.
Jerry, you have any?
Yeah,
I mean, if you guys want to give me direction as I go to this meeting next week, I'm happy to hear that.
I guess it's hard for me to make an assessment, for an example, on license fees, if we don't know what they are and when the last time we've increased them and, you know, what revenue they'd come in. But I'd like to have those issues addressed at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. At some point, we need to bring some options
Okay.
to you. This, again, I'm not expecting you to make a decision on this.
Right.
I'm just bringing this information to you. But
Yeah.
Commissioner Menser will be attending this conversation next week. And what will be the sense of the board related to this proposal?
Okay. And then the other issue on these 2 animal care technicians, I don't know how many volunteers they have over there at Animal Services, but do they have enough? Do they have enough volunteers? Do they encourage volunteerism? Mm-hmm. Do they discourage volunteerism in lieu of having full-time paid staff for a future union activity or something like that? I don't know. So, and when it comes to us being on par, you guys hear me say this all the time, but we've got 4 parks employees. The city of Lacey has 38. And that's the pits. And I know we're trying to address that. We need 20 more deputy sheriffs and 3 deputy prosecuting attorneys. I don't know where that's going to come from, but if we were going to bring everything up to speed the way it should be, so almost everything we do is kind of robbing from Peter to pay Paul. And so I'm kind of far from making a decision on this yet, but
No.
just
And,
want to let you know I'm not inclined, unless there's a big revenue source out there, to do something different. That's all. I'm just stuck.
We will not bring everything up to par. I hope you're not waiting for that. It's going to be a long wait.
But
But I will add that being on the board for 2 years anyway with JASCOM, they encourage volunteerism because of this issue. And there's no overt or covert trying to discourage volunteerism so they can hire people, because they know the money's not there. And I fully support JASCOM on the work those men and women do, not only internally, and I agree with the, what you call them, the tech or the people working inside.
Animal care techs.
Animal caretakers is a definite need, but, however, the field service officer brings in revenue with fines and prosecutions. In fact, it was just on the news yesterday that 20 animals were seized.
50 some animals, right?
What's that?
I'm looking at Sarah, it was in the Olympian. 53 animals, I think.
About 50 some? Birds and all
Yeah.
kinds of stuff.
Done in Rochester.
Yeah, quite a few. And they get adopted out sometimes, depending on the evidentiary value or the capacity of the shelter. They get adopted out to folks, and it costs a lot of money. It's not only to prosecute, but to care for the animals because they're evidence pending a case disposition. So the need is there, and the field officers, they're expensive, but they generate income. So it's really difficult, but I'm not ready until I hear more information too regarding fees and
Yeah,
licensing.
but if I may, and I think Commissioner Messer touched base on this, even JustCom board does not approve the additional positions. Just the cost of conducting business is going up. And that may be something that you may consider next year as to how you want to mitigate that as well. Because as for us, the cost of doing business increases for them as well.
Yes, it does.
And that should be part of the equation, at least from my perspective.
Yes, sir.
I guess if there is potential revenue generated by field service officers, I guess I'd like to see that in this equation as well. What kind of income do they generate? I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, so my question for you wouldn't be so much direction, is to find out, they'll have the stats on that, the county fees, what we bring in dog fees or licensing fees, and maybe over a 3-5 year period. I don't know if it's increasing, decreasing, or remaining the same. And I'm not even sure how much it is we pay. I don't remember. I just paid it two of them last year.
I got it down. I don't know the answer to that.
Do you have any other questions for Ty to take back?
No.
Okay.
Bring up the 38 and 4. I think that's a good seller.
Okay, I will. Can I raise my other dog? So this is unrelated to, clear your mind of all that.
Yeah.
But this is JASCOM related. So Elizabeth Petrich and I have been developing, we've had so many of these questions about our processes that I thought we should have an FAQ so citizens know kind of what we do and don't do in terms of these field service issues. It's titled, How to Address Concerns or Complaints About a Pet Animal in Unincorporated Thurston County. Because if you remember the dog bite cases we dealt with, we do have a parallel county process. You know, it's much better for folks to go to JASCOM, but it's in our code. So she developed this, and I was comfortable with everything she had except for one thing. She did this based on the practical reality of what we do, and the practical reality of what we do is that Thurston County does not currently respond to or issue civil infractions for barking dogs, at-large dogs, a dog menacing or killing another pet, or nuisance pets. That's true, but we have a section in our code directly that talks about nuisance pets and about how civil infractions can be a class 4 civil infraction and class. So I'm uncomfortable having code that says that we issue civil infractions, but now we have a policy statement saying we don't. Because if I were reading this as a citizen, I would be like, well, what the heck? What's going on here? You know, when somebody wants if there's a real serious situation in the unincorporated county, folks have to call the sheriff. And I know the sheriff doesn't like that, but that's just the reality. That's the situation we've created by not being willing to pay for the field service officer response from JASCOM. So, you know, I don't know if the answer is we get the sheriff to deal with nuisance pets, we take that piece out of our code or something. But right now we have a gap. In my opinion, we have a policy versus, you know, law gap, and I'm not comfortable with it. And I just wanted to raise it. I think we need to address it so people can understand. Here's the code, and here's how it's enforced, and it's consistent.
Yeah, I agree with that. It needs to be rectified because it's in conflict. Yeah.
Does that code refer to shall or may? I guess
Here's the code right here. So it says, we have a definition in our code that says nuisance pet animal means a pet animal that habitually or continually disturbs the peace and quiet of any individual or neighborhood by barking, whining, howling, or making any other noise. Then it says domestic animals are exempted from this provision.
That's clear.
And
Wow.
domestic
That
animal,
negated the whole purpose of
but domestic
dogs
animal means an
barking.
animal other than a pet animal that may or may not be used as a food source, such as, but not limited to rabbit, chicken, goat, sheep, cow, or horse. Okay, so let's just say dogs are still in there. because they're exempted from domestic animal, they're not exempted from nuisance pet animal.
Oh,
Then we go later to nuisance pet animal provision says, such person's pet animal constitutes a nuisance pet animal as defined in blah. A first violation of a nuisance pet animal designation is a class 4 infraction. A second and any subsequent violation shall be a class 3 infraction. I mean, we get very specific about the types of penalties, civil and class 3 and class 4, but then we've got a policy statement that basically says Thurston County does not issue civil infractions. So, I mean, if that's the reality, maybe we just take it out of the code, but I don't think it should be sitting in the code if we're not able to access it. Or we have something, or we put something in the code, or we could add something to the code that says, provided the county has resources to provide for enforcement, or at least so people are on notice.
No, that is a good
that we're not
point.
inconsistent.
And the date of the code precedes the agreement with JASCOM.
Right.
But it's certainly a need to look at the code as to how we can align to the current conditions. So let me work with Elizabeth and see what we can do, and we'll bring a proposal to you at a later date.
Yeah, the ordinance came in '96, updated in '03.
Yeah.
That's the last revision.
And that's what further confounds the citizenry who calls 911. 911 dispatch the sheriff. Sheriff says, we're not going to respond, have them call JASCOM or Animal Services. Animal Services, we don't do that. And in the meantime, the person is sitting there with a dog bite or some doggone thing, some issue that gets unresolved because no one is responding.
I heard so many stories on the campaign trail about just everybody pointing the finger.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
Sheriff says call them, JASCOM says call them, Olympia says call the county. I mean, it's absurd. I mean,
It is
whatever
confusing,
process
yeah.
we have in deficiencies, at least it needs to be clear, a clear roadmap for the citizen, which is what I was trying to accomplish with this policy FAQ. But if it's inconsistent with the code, I'm not solving the problem still.
How many parks employees does Lacey have?
38, I believe.
And
they
it's not a willing to pay, it's an ability to pay.
Yeah.
And it all boils down to the Growth Management Act and no phase 2. Really, that's what it is all about. In the end, county government was never given adequate resources.
Are you going to circulate that draft, or is it just something you're going to?
I'll
What's
connect
the
with
next step?
Elizabeth and have a conversation with her as to how we can, that's good feedback from Commissioner Minister that gives me a perspective as to how we need to approach perhaps potential revisions to the code, and
You have
we'll
this.
bring a proposal to you.
Yeah, and I guess one other thing, if I'd change anything that says shall to may, I guess, all the way through. You mentioned shall in one position.
Oh, okay.
One place there, but just to give us a little wiggle room, I guess. I don't know, because I don't see that we're going to get a lot of revenue in the
Okay.
next couple days.
We'll figure that out, yeah.
Number 4, the resolution on the initiative I-976.
Yeah,
Opposing it.
the same, I'm going by this, and this is just a review of your comments you provided last week. And again, I just want to make sure that I capture all your comments. And so I'll give you a minute to review those revisions.
I'm good with it.
Looks like you incorporated the discussion real well.
Okay.
I'm okay with that. You all right with it?
Yep, good.
Is that next week or is that today?
Next week.
Thank you.
Because we have to have a hearing on it first, right? That's why. Okay.
Public testimony, snowplow.
Yeah, I have 2 items, the snowplow, and I'd like to touch base on the recent correspondence you received from Mr. Pettit. First, you received the snowplow mailbox incident. There is a thick package that you received. Commissioner Minister is well aware of the issue. And also you receive an email from a citizen related to the mailbox. So just to give in perspective, your argument is that during the snowstorm events, county staff went and plowed the roads. As a result of plowing the roads, it creates a mound of snow on the side road. And she perceives that because of the pressure of this mound of snow against her mailbox caused the mailbox to be tilted. And there's a picture included in here from your package. And when I heard about this issue, I thought that the mailbox was really stripping out of the ground. It's still didn't. So I believe she is arguing that we need to make her whole in terms of straightening up this mailbox. And there is a little bit of a precedent setting in this particular case. I don't think, at least from my point of view, how I see the issue, there is not an evidence that perhaps a county equipment touched the mailbox. If that was the case, then we are obligated to make citizens whole. It was just the sheer nature of us snow plowing that created this situation, perhaps. And if we were to, go through this process and address every single impact as a result of the snow plowing, it will be an incredible task for the county to do so. It will not be just a small mailbox. It will be other amenities, landscape, and everything else that may be affected by our operations. So she sent a lengthy email to you. I not necessarily agree some of the statements that she makes related to me and perhaps the relationship that I have with risk management. I never serve in the risk management board, so I don't have any institutional bias, as you stated. So my suggestion to you is just let me respond to her, and my response will be in terms of she has an option, as any other citizen has an option, that if any citizen perceive the county has damaged or made them wrong, they have the option to file a claim with a risk management. And the risk management is a third party looking at the issue objectively, and they will determine the course of action at this point. I just want to bring this to your attention, and my recommendation for you will be to let me answer and respond to the citizen on those terms.
We'll time first.
Well, Ms. June, I met with her, and I couldn't really get to exact understanding, but she is very averse to filing a risk claim. I mean, our process that we have, which I'm told could, she wanted, she either said, her position was, we should either change our code so it's not just actual contact, but it's more like caused by, so that this sort of indirect causation would be included, or we should have some sort of a mitigation exception provision for a meritorious case like hers, if we're not going to change the code. And I tried to explain to her that we have a process and it requires filing this claim, and they can actually take some of that mitigation, as I understood from you, Ramiro, into account. But she just shut me down on that and said, no, I'm not. She doesn't trust, or she makes an allusion to it here in the bottom of the first page, where she says, my district commissioner's email, which was me, the county manager encouraged you to file a risk management claim, makes me wonder whether you will be unconsciously influenced, and have in-group favoritism and institutional bias. So she won't even try to avail herself of our process, which I don't know what to say about that. She was a very nice lady, and this was very much about the principle. She felt like people didn't believe what she was saying. I get that. People get very frustrated. Like she was told, I mean, here's the evidence that she has, and she was essentially, I guess, told by staff. She claims that no, they didn't actually cause this, and that they had their own pictures, and that made her really mad because it was like somebody from Thurston County telling her she's lying or not telling the truth. I believe her 100% after meeting with her. She's very credible. She doesn't know whether the snowplow equipment touched her mailbox or not. She's not claiming that. But I think so it's a question of whether we have a good policy by saying indirect pushing snow against something that then is damaged, is it?
Yeah, and that will be a very slippery slope, if I may. if you open that. And I think, I believe we have risk to really give the citizens an avenue to have an objective assessment of their claims. And it's not a new process. It's a process that has been in play for many, many, many years. And it is not a new process for Thurston County either, because every single county has a risk management and a process in which any citizen can file a claim against the county for whatever damages they perceive we have caused.
Does she appeal that to us then if she doesn't like that response? Or if she doesn't want to appeal the assessment of her risk management claim?
It's a little bit different process. It's not, at that point, it's not a legislative appeal. Administrative appeal is a little more, a different process.
Yeah, okay.
I felt so bad because all she really wanted was someone to help her dig the hole down. Like, she's really not even asking for complete reconstruction of her mailbox. It was very modest. It's all about the principle for her and feeling like she wasn't treated respectfully. So I was trying to see if there was some path forward through our processes, but I feel like if she won't file the risk claim,
At this point, my assessment is that's the next step. If she wants to take, is to file a claim with risk management. So if, with your concurrence, I will respond to that email, if you may.
You got a shovel.
I have a shovel.
Go
But
ahead.
that is what I was going to
No,
say.
please don't feel urged that our commissioner will go out and start digging a
I
hole
was
in the county's
anticipating
right
what
of way.
Gary might say.
thought about it.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner.
These mailbox situations like this, the mailbox is in the county right away, isn't it?
Yes,
So,
9 times out of 10.
yeah, I mean, mostly it's in the right of way, and they do have a choice when they put their mailbox up. I know in places in eastern Washington and Montana and Idaho where they do have snow, because we very seldom have that kind of snow, and now with global warming, it'll probably never happen again, but anyway, but there is a mechanism in place where they put their post on their own property, and they put an arm out, and some even hang it on a chain, I mean, if snow is really the problem. So there are some other ways to address this for her. It doesn't fix the immediate problem of digging the hole, but don't we have an arbitration process in place right now where if she does file a claim, it can go to arbitration, can't it?
Dispute resolution.
So at this point, I would recommend, without getting into the next steps, I think the option that she has in front of her is to file a claim.
Yeah, but I mean, we could have an unaffiliated arbitrator, I suppose, in that group. Eventually, it would reach that point. I realize she doesn't want to go that route, but But I don't see that we can move forward on this mainly because of the slippery slope that the county manager is talking about. Where do we draw the line on whose place we fix and which ones were in the right of way, which ones aren't in the right of way?
And even become more not clearly defined if we were to say we may have caused, or whether it be landscaping or anything else because of our actions. But I agree, bless her heart, and I read this when my mind was clear, as she wanted us to do. But she does not want to at least take the first step, initial step, and it's incumbent upon her to do so. And changing the policy, I don't think, is going to rectify her issue, or I think she'll still be engaged.
I think we have about 50,000 mailboxes out there in the unincorporated area of the county.
So you're suggesting you'll respond to her?
I'll respond on your behalf.
And tell her that you weren't involved in the risk pool? You weren't employed?
I will clarify that.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Anything further on that one? Anything further?
No, sir.
All right.
So one more item. This is just to bring to your awareness. You received a letter from Mr. Pettit, I believe yesterday, related to the courthouse. And if I may, put in gist, is the City of Olympia involvement, the financial involvement into the courthouse project. And Mr. Pettit is correct to the fact that we really don't have a formal.
Do we have a copy of whatever you're talking about?
It was in your inbox yesterday.
Oh,
sorry.
I read it on my computer.
Okay, good enough.
So we don't have a formal commitment for the City of Olympia, and my response to you has not changed really in terms of, through the interactions with the City of Olympia staff I believe they're still committed to the project. I think they're looking for ways as to how they're going to be participating financially. So at this point, I really don't have anything else to report to you other than the City of Olympia has not told me, at least to me, they are not interested in participating financially to this project. So at this point, that's the only thing that I can offer to you and try in response to Mr. Pettit's latest letter. But in jest, he is correct. We don't have a formal commitment from the city, and I cannot argue that.
Okay. Go ahead, Gary. Your response?
So do we know the actual revenue that will be raised if this was to pass by the voters coming up? Do we have a pretty close number? Not only what we're looking for, but what revenue is actually going to come in, and maybe that divided out by 25 or something? I'm just trying to figure, are we only going for the 220,000 or something?
220,000.
I mean, 220 million. Are we only going for the 220 million, and they're going to pick up the other 30?
So
so we do we know any of those facts yet?
In all that was presented to you through the whole process leading for you to make a decision.
But never an exact or close to an exact number.
Well, close to an exact is difficult.
Well, I know. It doesn't
because
have to be
the valuation of the properties changes from year to year.
If you could get it even
Right.
within 5 million.
So, and that was presented to you in terms of the model that we presented to you with the bond council. And we made an assumption of a $250 million project.
Okay.
And the $250 million project, fast forward to the 25-year levy lift to the legislature give to pay a similar bond to this, that created a 25-year bond. And if you remember, the model included paying the interest as well as a potential, paying the principal as well as a potential interest to the bond. Mm-hmm. So it's not just paying the principal, but also the interest to the bond. And at that point, we made the assumption that perhaps a 0.47 cents per 1,000 valuation will cover the principal as well as the interest related to a particular bond. And at that point, we presented to you, based on that assessment, they could probably generate a $16 million a year revenue.
How much?
16.
16, okay.
Or thereabouts, and that's probably within the 5 million that you were looking for.
Yeah, okay.
So in those assumptions, those reports are available online. Everything has been vetted and the public's perspective. That information was presented to you before you considered taking this action. So I'm not giving you any new information related to that.
That's probably adequate. You're just refreshing my memory in that regard. I'm curious if that equation included I keep remembering a $30 million commitment by the city of Olympia. And I'm not right on that? Or?
Yeah, and that assumption included a $22 million commitment by the city.
It was 22, it wasn't 30?
No, I think it was 22.
Okay.
Thereabouts. But again, all those numbers are planning.
Flexible, yeah.
Numbers.
Okay.
Because the city could consider, one of the options, we touch base with the city, what is the lease approach? Meaning we build the square footage, they lease that, whether they can go through that process or not. The city council may consider they want to own a portion of the building. That creates another ways as to how they can have to generate revenue to do that. And those are the conversations that I had with the city staff on those terms. And again, the only thing I can report to you is a verbal commitment. I don't have anything in concrete that I said this is exactly what the city is going to participate and how they're planning to do it. But on the other hand, I have not received any information from the city saying, no, we're not going to be participating on the project. Because if that was the case, I would be bringing this to your attention. But that has not been the case yet.
Go ahead, you have something?
Well, just to answer your question, and I don't know if you did it as directly, but I remember the discussion being that the financing was structured so that the amount that we were raising covers the project.
Right.
You know,
The $250 million potential project cost.
It
plus
wasn't that we
interest.
were only, it wasn't that we picked a number that was short based on the expectation of Olympia is coming up with that. It was, we're covering, Olympia can backfill. If they don't, there's a whole bunch of different ways we can go, as you were sort of outlining,
Because
in terms of an alternative. But
if they don't participate financially, the project will reduce. Or the project can continue to have the same square footage, and the county has an option to rent to another outfit.
or you have a resource hub, or you
Yeah,
have this, or you have that.
or we can probably bring public health as part of the whole consolidation, because public health is not part of this project, continues to be in Lily Road. So, and again, this is just planning documents. When and if we get to the point of start defining what that is, then a little more detail has to occur. It has to occur.
And we wouldn't be discussing this today.
No, this is
Had
just
not-
going to
no,
just
let
going to
me
bring to your
finish.
attention.
We wouldn't be discussing this today had Commissioner Edwards, Commissioner Blake, and I heavily lobbied the legislators to change 9 years to 25 years for Thurston County only for this project.
Yeah. Yeah,
and we
the-
lobbied successfully to get to this point now. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
No,
yeah.
I guess I'd just follow up on that we do need to do something. You know, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've always felt this isn't the something that's proper. Now that's, we've got the democratic process at work here. So we are where we are, so I'm still trying to get some answers. And so we don't know if they are going to lease or if they're going to purchase, basically. We don't know the answer to that yet,
Not
right?
yet. Formally, no.
Yeah. And besides the health department, we're also leaving out the sheriff's office. Is that right on this proposal?
Well,
Or was part of that money going to go towards their upgrade?
so the sheriff's office square footage they currently utilizes in the current condition right here, it is included on the space assessment of the new courthouse. And that is part of the overall $250 million project.
But not their
the square
off-site
footage. The
activity.
square footage.
But not the off-site activity, or yes? That's what I'm wondering.
I think
Okay.
I'm going to answer that question
Okay.
if you give me a minute. So the square footage the sheriff's office is currently using here is included on the space planning of the new courthouse.
On this campus?
Okay.
The hearing that we're using on this
So
campus?
let's assume the sheriff's office is using 20,000 square feet right now, and building
Here.
number 3.
Is that what they're using? I don't know.
Well,
Roughly?
just to make a point.
Okay.
I'm trying to answer your question.
Okay, okay.
If you give me a minute.
Yeah, okay, okay.
So whatever the square footage the sheriff's office is using in building number 3 here in the courthouse, it is included on the space planning for the new
Yes.
project,
Okay.
plus increased growth. What you're asking is whether operational, that will make sense to bring the sheriff's office to that place. That is a different conversation, because I think the consolidation of the sheriff's office may be part of the option to go south of the airport. And those are the options that you may consider. But again, what we have in here is just from the purely space planning point of view, we include everything what is included on this campus.
Okay.
Is space planning. Operationally, you may decide to do something different. Plan
Public
B.
health can take this sheriff's space.
And you may decide to consolidate the sheriff's office south of Tom Water and the field operations. That's a proposal the sheriff's office brought to you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The square footage on the potential new courthouse provides opportunities to bring public health on that. So this is just, let's consider it to be just a planning aspect. No decisions have been made yet.
Okay.
It's just space planning purposes to give us an estimate on the cost. Operationally, again, you may decide that operationally you may want to do something different. And even on Plan B, if the voters decided not to support this measure, and if you decide to put this measure, first of all, back to the April 28th, 2020, we need to develop a Plan B. And the Plan B may be finding a additional space here in the current courthouse. And the sheriff's office may be part of that equation as well. So either way, that conversation needs to occur. And the sheriff's office is key of that. And I have shared that with the sheriff in many occasions.
Just one more thing.
Yeah.
One more.
One more.
Same topic?
We're out of time. Yeah, same topic.
One more.
When will we know the answers to some of these possibility scenarios? I mean, will we know that before the April vote if we
No,
move forward towards an
no.
April? We will
You're talking
not.
about specifically
So,
the
at this
Yeah,
point,
right.
at this point, the staff
The
is not
plan.
going to do anything beyond what we have done so far.
Okay, so we won't know. So are we kind of asking the public to vote on an unknown? Is that kind of it? Trust us?
I disagree with that.
Okay, well, I'm just wondering.
If their vote hinges on whether or not Olympia is consolidated, then maybe, yeah. They
The
don't-
vote
they
hinges
don't.
whether the sheriff's office goes to downtown.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's an added benefit, but I don't think it's the essence of the
I cannot tell you that, but staff, unless it's directed by the board otherwise, we're not planning to do additional work on this.
Because we worked up 2 additional proposals that here and West Side that wouldn't even have that possibility, so it was just an added benefit to Plum Street.
And not much is going to happen regarding the other jurisdictions in support or opposition until after the election in November anyway.
I suppose. Okay.
Everything's just kind of on pause.
Yep.
All right.
Seems like I brought that up one time before.
Yep, this agenda setting work session is adjourned.
Well, it's pretty close to being the right time, huh?